Hello and welcome to Library of Ruina Ranked. In this series, I'll be ranking every collectible combat page from canon to impurity. These rankings will be based on how good they are when you get them, and how usable they are to the average player when they're used in a way that a new player would reasonably be able to understand. For example, you'll see Daring Decision in a fairly high position due to its power in a discard margin deck, despite it being pretty unplayable in a regular deck. But you won't see the full stop office pages being regarded highly because their only use is in a cheese strategy. Perhaps a bit ambiguous as to what counts, but I will make note of things like that as they come up. I also won't be talking about Gebra, Bina, or Roland's special pages as they're only usable on a single floor. I'll be using a scale from F to S+, of course with F being the worst and S+ being the best. And finally, I may get some things wrong. I'm going off of my experience with the pages and what I've gathered from talking with other people, but some things might slip through the cracks. Generally though, things should be about correct. With all that out of the way, let's get started. In this video, I'll be ranking all the cards from Canard, starting with the default pages. Our first card is Evade, which is a 0 cost rolling 1 to 4 evade. This card is probably one of the worst pages in the game for standard play. Before you get light regen and page draw, your most valuable resource is your speed die slots, and casting Evade isn't much better than just passing the turn. The one reason you'd want to run this is if you need to redirect clashes without dealing damage before you get frontal dodge or smoking pipe, but that's only relevant for suppressing red routing code in the Gebra realization, and for that reason, this is just an F. Next, we have Light Attack. This is a 1 cost rolling 2 to 3 pierce, 1 to 4 blunt. With an average roll of 2.5, this page is already pretty bad. Again, speed die slots are at a premium, so you want to be spending as much light per scene as possible, which this does not do. I think that just makes this a D+. Light Defense is next. This is another 1 cost rolling 1 to 5 evade, 2 to 3 block, 1 to 2 slash. 3 dice is nice, but only having a single offensive die that rolls 1 to 2 means that this page will always deal abysmal damage. Defensive pages are at their weakest here as enemies will die in a couple of hits, and so those combined with this being a 1 cost makes this a D. Charge and Cover is a 2 cost rolling 3 to 6 pierce, 2 to 6 block. The clashing here is pretty good, but since there's only a single offensive die, the damage is a bit low and it doesn't free hit very well. However, compared to the previous 2 pages, it's more slot efficient, so while it's immediately outclassed, it's still probably around a C. Focus Strikes is our first 3 cost. Rolling 3 to 5, 3 to 5 slash, 1 to 3 pierce, this page has the best damage out of the cards we've talked about thus far with triple offensive dice. The clashing isn't amazing, but will beat most 1 costs and quite a few 2 costs, but realistically, you can just free hit with this and instantly stagger almost any target that isn't slash normal. While it's arguably the second worst 3 cost in Canard, it's still a 3 cost, and that's good enough to get it to a C+. Bite Off rolls 1 to 4 slash, 1 to 4 blunt, with the slash inflicting 1 bleed next scene on hit. This page is remarkably similar to Light Attack, but has a free bleed attached to it. That does make it better, but not enough to bump it up a tier, making this another D+. Rat's Guide to Survival is a 2 cost rolling 1 to 6 block, 3 to 4 slash, 1 to 7 evade, with the slash inflicting 1 bleed next scene on hit. This page's rolls are pretty solid, it has a bleed, and contrary to how it normally is, the evade on 3 is the best spot for it since it often gets store tees against the next person attacking you. However, this is still a defensive page, so this is just a C-. Dirty Blow is up next. This 2 cost rolls 3 to 7 blunt, 1 to 3 block, with the blunt inflicting 2 bleed next scene on clash win. 3 to 7 will win most clashes, which makes the 2 bleed very likely to stick. Compared to Charge and Cover, it has a half power more on 1 and the 2 bleed, but the block is half as powerful, but as we know, the only thing that matters is damage, so that makes Dirty Blow a C+. Backstreet's Dash is a 1 cost rolling 1 to 8 pierce that inflicts 1 bleed next scene on hit. This is a very inconsistent page, but the damage is pretty decent. It's held back by being a 1 cost, so compared to other pages that are a higher light cost, it will still get outclassed, even if it's more efficient per light, which means that this is just a C-. Skitter Away is a 1 cost that rolls 1 to 6, 1 to 6 evade, 1 to 4 blunt. This is a defensive page that I'm fine to put 1 of in my deck. While I would have rathered it be evade, blunt, evade, the evades are strong enough to beat a lot of 2 costs, and it hoses pages that are defensive, offensive, offensive quite well. Overall, I think that gives it the distinction of being a C. Next we have Gut Harvesting. This is a 3 cost rolling 3 to 6, 3 to 5 slash, 1 to 4 blunt, with the slashes inflicting 1 bleed next scene on hit. Compared to Focus Strikes, we get a half a power on the 1 and 2 bleed in exchange for dropping our 3rd defensive die for an albeit stronger block die. In the end, the 2 bleed and half a power typically outdamage the 1 to 3 pierce on average, and this page clashes better, so that means that this is a B-. Thrust is a 1 cost rolling 1 to 4, 1 to 4 pierce. This page is really similar to Bite Off and Light Attack, but trades roll consistency or a bleed for dice type consistency. Another sad grade to a pretty bad set of cards, and another D+. Dodge and Strike is a 0 cost that rolls 1 to 4 evade, 1 to 2 slash. While technically a strict upgrade to evade, this page is also basically worthless for the same reasons as evade, but doesn't have the fringe use against Red Riding Hood, so this is another F. Wallop is a 2 cost rolling 2 to 6, 2 to 4 blunt. This page's clashes are equal to Dirty Blow, having a bit less power on 1 for a bit more power on 2, and trades a 2 bleed for double offensive dice. While I'm a bit less confident in clashing with it due to being weaker where it matters, the damage is good enough for it to be a C+ alongside Dirty Blow. Preemptive Strike is next, being a 2 cost rolling 3 to 5 slash, 1 to 8 evade. While the evade is quite strong, being a 2 cost that only has 1 offensive die that doesn't even roll well is a liability, and the evade being on 2 instead of 3 means it doesn't have the benefit Rat's Guide to Survival has of often acting like 2 pages. I think that means that this page is a D+. Quickness is a 1 cost rolling 1 to 4 blunt, 1 to 6 evade, and gives 1 haste next scene on use. This is a baby version of Preemptive Strike, having worse clashes for a cheaper cost, but as we've discussed, you want your pages to be more expensive and stronger, and haste doesn't really matter at this stage, so this is just a D-. Struggle is a defensive 2 cost, rolling 2 to 6, 2 to 5 block, 2 to 6 blunt, and it gives 2 protection next scene on use. A lot of people really like this page, but I think having the 2 protection instead of a higher roll average means that this doesn't clash incredibly well. At the very least, it's double block dice and the offensive die is abysmal, but overall I think it's just a C-. Preparation is a 1 cost rolling 2 to 3 pierce, 2 to 4 block, with the block restoring 1 light on clash win. This page's rolls are pretty bad for a 1 cost due to it being offensive block instead of offensive, and restoring a light is basically useless. It is technically a pseudo 0 cost, so for that reason it stays out of F, but it's still a D-. Commandeering is a 3 cost rolling 4 to 8 blunt, 3 to 4 block, 3 to 4 pierce. It also gives 1 protection to all allies next scene on use. The protection doesn't particularly matter, but it's a nice bonus since the clash on this page is some of the best encountered. Compared to Gut Harvesting, your damage is a bit lower due to the bleed, but your clashing is significantly better, and since Blunt is the best damage type for countered after you kill Yoon, this makes Commandeering a solid B+. Your 2 slows are next page. This 2 cost rolls 1 to 9 evade, 2 to 4 slash. The evade adds 2 power to the slash on clash win, and the slash inflicts 2 fragile next scene on hit. 1 to 9 evade can be almost anything, and having the effect stack onto the slash die means it'll also have good damage. If you send this into something with 3 offensive dice, then you'll feel really good when you throw out an 8 to 10 slash die encountered. However, this page is somewhat inconsistent, and if you end up losing, your 2 late will feel wasted, so I think that just makes this a B-. Time for a little test is another 2 cost. This one rolls 2 to 6 block, 2 to 4, 2 to 3 slash. The block also lowers the max value of the opponent's next die by 3 on clash win. If we compare this to your 2 slow, we're trading in the huge spike potential for consistency. You get more damage up front, even if your 2 slow wins 1 clash with the evade, but if you lose the first clash, the 2 and 3 are both pretty bad, so I think that makes this just a C. Feeling Good is a 1 cost rolling 1 to 5 slash, 3 to 4 block, with the slash inflicting 1 fragile next scene on hit. Compared to Preparation, you get half a power on 1 and a fragile, but lose the late regen. While that makes it better, it's still pretty bad, so I think that means this is a D-. Up next, we have Blow It Up. This 2 cost rolls 1 to 6 pierce, 2 to 5 blunt, with the pierce inflicting 1 paralysis next scene on hit. While 2 offensive dice and paralysis is nice, the roll range is a little bit low, so it'll often lose clashes against other 2 or 3 costs. This means that overall, it's just a C. You Only Live Once is a 3 cost rolling 1 to 12 blunt, inflicting 2 paralysis next scene on hit. This page is a pretty big meme, but it's honestly more playable than a lot of people make it out to be. However, that doesn't mean it's exactly incredibly playable. When you high roll on this, you can sometimes instantly stagger an enemy, but if you low roll, you'll end up spending 3 light to do nothing. Its best use case is probably as a last ditch effort sort of page, where you pray high rolls when you're about to lose. It's still a 3 cost, so its damage is better than most other pages, so I think overall that gets this page to a D+. Charge Up is our first light regen page, being a 0 cost rolling 2 to 3 blunt and restoring 1 light on use at the cost of inflicting 1 self paralysis next scene. Unfortunately for this page, you don't need late regen because receptions end before you run out of light from emotion levels, staggers, and kills, so you're inflicting self-paralysis for basically nothing. There's some really scuffed late game strategies that want the self-paralysis, but those are fringe and usually just for memes, so this is an F. Endure is a 1 cost rolling 2 to 5 3 to 4 block 1 to 3 blunt, with the second block inflicting 1 paralysis next scene on clash win, and the blunt inflicting 1 paralysis next scene on hit. This is another passable defensive page. The potential of 2 paralysis is nice because it opens the way for your stronger pages next scene. Similarly to Skitter Away, I wouldn't be embarrassed to put this in my deck as a 1 of. I think that means that it's a C. Dried Up is a 2 cost rolling 2 to 4 slash 3 to 4 evade, and it gives 2 strength next scene on use. This page is a bit confused. 2 strength is nice obviously, but you're giving up a lot to cast it, being a 2 cost with 1 cost rolls. The argument for using it is that it supercharges your next 3 cost bomb page, but again, since slots are the most important resource, light becomes much less important, so you'd probably rather cast 2 bomb pages. I can't see a viable use for this page, so I think it's an F. Chop It Off is an interesting page. It's a 2 cost rolling 2 to 3 pierce, 1 to 1 3 to 3 slash. Theoretically, I should like this page since it has 3 offensive dice, but they're so abysmal that you can't clash them into anything, and free hitting with it feels bad because you could have used focus strikes or any other 3 cost. It doesn't even guarantee a motion level because 2 of its dice don't have a range, meaning you can only get a single motion coin while free hitting. If it was 2 to 3, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, then it might have been a D, but as it is, I can't give this anything but an F. Overpower is a 2 cost that rolls 5 to 6 pierce, 2 to 3 slash, with the pierce inflicting 2 bleed next scene on hit. The 1 of this page is extremely strong, only being beaten by Commandeering, so having the bleed there is quite nice, as is having it be on hit instead of on clash win, as the 2 is quite weak. I've come down on Overpower since my counter guide, and I think it's actually the weakest of the 3 signature pages, but it's still very good and gets a B from me. Go In First is next, and is a 2 cost rolling 1 to 7 evade, 2 to 2, 2 to 6 pierce, both inflicting 1 bleed next scene on hit. This page clashes quite well despite the 2 to 2 pierce because of the strong evade, and it free hits decently with 2 offensive dice and 2 bleed. As long as you can beat most of the page you're clashing into with the evade, you'll feel really good about this page and is another B. Fend This Off If You Can is yet another 2 cost rolling 3 to 5 blunt, 3 to 4 pierce, with the blunt lowering the max value of the opponent's next die by 3 on clash win, and the pierce inflicting 2 bleed next scene on hit. This page is remarkably similar to Overpower, but a bit more evened out. Its damage is only half a power lower, but if you win the first clash, then the 2 is very likely to win, and it also inflicts its 2 bleed. Like the other 2 signature pages, this is a B. Rampage is a 3 cost rolling 2 to 4 blunt, 3 to 5 pierce, 3 to 5 slash, with the blunt and pierce inflicting 1 bleed next scene on hit. Compared to focus strikes, it has a 0.33 higher roll average and 2 bleed in exchange for worse dice placement. Its clashing isn't great because of that, but free hitting with it is the highest damage thing you can do encountered, and that means that this is a B-. Track is a 0 cost rolling 1 to 4 slash and recovering 1 HP on use. The HP is basically useless, so this is essentially an offensive version of Evade, which means it's an F, just plain and simple bad card. Finally, Mutilate is a 2 cost rolling 1 to 6, 2 to 6 slash, both recovering 1 HP on hit. This page is most similar to Blow It Up, getting half a power on 2 and switching the effect up. It's also somewhat similar to Fend This Off If You Can, having the same default roll range, but it's just generally worse due to its inconsistent roll range and significantly worse effects. I'd say it's better than Blow It Up, but just barely, so it's also a C. In the next video, we'll be covering the next chapter, Urban Myth. These videos will probably come out every 2 weeks rather than every 1 week, but please let me know what you think of the series in the comments. I'll see you soon, and as always, thank you for watching. Hello, and welcome back to Library of Ruina Ranked. In this video, I'll be ranking the cards in Urban Myth. There are quite a few awful cards, but we also find some gems in the 1 costs, so let's get started. Our first card is Keep It Fresh. This is a 1 cost rolling 3 to 4 slash 1 to 12 evade. This page's evade is incredibly strong for this stage of the game, rivaling evades found in Star of the City. It's a little bit awkward to use at times since the evade is on 2, which means you're usually going to free hit with it and let the evade act like a counter die rather than clash with it, but it's still good. Of course, being a 1 cost with a single offensive die, the damage is low, but the strong evade means you're usually happy to run a copy or 2 in your decks, which makes this a C+ for me. Trim the Ingredients is another 1 cost. This one rolls 1 to 6 blunt, 1 to 4 evade, with the blunt inflicting 1 paralysis next scene on hit. Compared to Keep It Fresh, this page trades 4 power on the evade die and having a more inconsistent range for 1 paralysis, which turns a useful counter page into a page that you're never happy casting. This is just an F. I Can Cook Anything is a 2 cost rolling 1 to 6 pierce, 4 to 4 slash, with the slash recovering 4 HP on hit. This page has the same roll range as Fend This Off If You Can, but lacks useful effects and is more inconsistent due to the wide range on 1. Additionally, since the 2 is a 4/4, it can't get an emotion coin from min or max rolling. All these elements together mean that this is just a C. Cooking Prep is a 1 cost rolling 4 to 5 block, 3 to 5 pierce, with the pierce inflicting 2 bleed next scene on hit. The roll range of this page is pretty incredible, being higher than most 2 costs at this stage of the game. The damage is also passable because of the 2 bleed. Compared to Keep It Fresh, this page has a 0.75 lower roll average, but has higher damage from the offensive die being stronger and the 2 bleed, as well as having better dice placement, which means that this page is a solid B. Next we have Ingredient Hunt. This 2 cost rolls 2 to 6 slash, 2 to 5 blunt, and the slash inflicts 2 binds next scene on hit. Compared to I Can Cook Anything, this page has the same roll average and trades the useless 4 HP for a close to useless 2 bind. I would say that this page is slightly better, but not enough so to make it anything higher than a C. Cruelty is a 1 cost rolling 2 to 6 blunt, 2 to 3 block, with the blunt recovering HP equal to the stacks of bleed on the target on hit. This page has some extremely fringe use in bleed teams in the mid to late game, as it can recover upwards of 60 or 70 HP, but in standard play, especially in Urban Myth, you're probably not going to recover more than 4 HP. Compared to Trim the Ingredients, the blunt die is slightly stronger, and a weak block is better than a weak evade, so that means it's a D- instead of an F. Next, Appetite is a 0 cost rolling 3 to 4 pierce that inflicts 1 bleed next scene on hit. 0 costs are bad, especially since you don't have a character with speed, and if you need to conserve light, you'd rather use a page like Cooking Prep, which clashes like a 2 cost, rather than this, which can't clash very effectively. It's just an F. Deflect is a 1 cost rolling 3 to 4 block, 1 to 4 blunt, 1 to 4 slash, with the blunt inflicting 1 paralysis next scene on hit. The dice spread looks pretty nice, but the rolls are so low that it's extremely hard to clash with this page. It also doesn't free hit exceptionally well because it only has 2 low rolling offensive dice. Still, paralysis is a good effect, so I think that this means this is a D. Mars's Prepared Mind is a 1 cost rolling 2 to 4 block, 2 to 6 slash, with the block giving the user 1 endurance next scene on clash win. This page's rolls are worse than Cooking Prep and it has a worse effect. It's more similar to Cruelty, having slightly higher power and better dice placement, which means it's a D+. Set Fire is a 2 cost rolling 3 to 5 3 to 5 blunt, both inflicting 3 burn at the cost of dealing 3 damage to self on hit. The clashing here isn't incredible, being beaten up by Cooking Prep, but it's passable for a 2 cost and 6 burn is an insanely high amount of damage. That level of damage means I can't put this any lower than a B. Taste My Flaming Bat is next. This page is a 1 cost rolling 3 to 4 block, 1 to 8 evade, 3 to 3 blunt. The evade boosts the blunt's max value by 3 on clash win, and the blunt inflicts 2 burn on hit. This is probably one of the best defensive pages in the game. The fact that the evade stacks onto the blunt means the damage is often still quite respectable, and you're quite likely to get at least 1 clash win since 1 to 8 has an average roll of 4.5. I've been incredibly impressed by this page every time I use it, and I think it's deserving of a B+. Non-Stop Assault is a 3 cost rolling 1 to 5 blunt, 2 to 6 3 to 6 slash. Compared to Rampage, it trades the 2 bleed in a more consistent roll range for half a power on the 3rd die. I think that makes this worse than Rampage, so it's just a C. Fleet Footsteps is a 1 cost rolling 2 to 3 slash, 1 to 6, 1 to 4 evade, both of them recovering 2 HP on defense. This card is interesting as it's the only card on the game that has an on defense condition, which is like on clash win but only against defensive dice. The other interesting thing is that this page is pretty awful. It has a lower roll range than Skitter Away, and while the dice placement is better because you can use the evade like a counter die, having the same roll range as Deflect but with worse dice type in effect means this is an F. Gather Intel is a 2 cost rolling 2 to 6 slash. Compared to Appetite, you get half a power in exchange for the 1 bleed. That's slightly better, but not nearly enough to get this page out of F tier. Lulu's Prepared Mind is a lot better than Mars's. This 1 cost rolls 1 to 6 block, 4 to 5 blunt, with the block giving the user 1 endurance next scene on clash win. This page can compare to Cooking Prep a lot better, losing 1 power on the block and the 2 bleed for half a power on the blunt and the endurance. I do think it's slightly worse because the 2 bleed gives more damage than the half a power and the endurance doesn't matter too much, so it's just a B-. Pound is up next. The 0 cost rolls 1 to 5 blunt. This is just a worse version of Gather Intel and is a very easy F. Multi-Block is a 1 cost, rolling 1 to 5 3 to 5 block, 1 to 4 blunt. The rolls of this page are pretty sad, especially as a defensive page, and it doesn't have any relevant effects, so it's just an F. Multi-Hit is a 2 cost, rolling 1 to 6 pierced, 1 to 2, 1 to 2 blunt. And the first 2 dice boost the next die's max value by 3 on clash win. If you get lucky, this page rolls 1 to 6, 1 to 5, 1 to 5, which is decent for a 2 cost, but since it's on clash win instead of on hit, you're liable to low roll on 1, which all but guarantees losing the 2 and 3. I think that's a bit too much risk for such a paltry reward, so it's just a D+. Quick Attack is a 1 cost rolling 2 to 3 pierce, 2 to 3 blunt, and it gives the user 2 haste on use. I'm not sure what to say about this page. It gives the haste immediately rather than next scene, so it's even more useless than it would normally be. And beyond that, it's just a slightly more consistent light attack, which means this is another F. Finally, Strong Strike is a 3 cost rolling 5 to 7, 3 to 4 blunt. Compared to Commandeering, it loses the block die and the protection for a slightly more consistent 1. While it's quite good against enemies who are weak to blunt, the fact that it's basically just worse Commandeering means it's probably just a C. In the next video, I'll be covering the next chapter of the game, Urban Legend. I'll see you soon, and as always, thank you for watching. Hello and welcome back to Library of Ruina Ranked. In this video, we'll be covering all of the Urban Legend pages. We finally get some proper utility pages and some incredible bombs, so let's get started. Our first card is Diversion. This is a 0 cost rolling 1 to 3 / 1 to 4 blunt. This page is another 0 cost and another unplayable card. The free hitting is better than average since it has double offensive dice, but that can't save it from being an F. Sharp Swipe is next. This is a 1 cost rolling 3 to 6 pierce. Compared to handling work, you get half a power but it costs another light. Obviously, this is unplayable trash, another F. Back Attack is a 1 cost rolling 1 to 8 evade, 2 to 3 blunt, 1 to 4 slash. This is kind of like a 1 cost version of Going First. The evade is fairly strong so it can counter quite a few pages, but if you end up clashing with the offensive dice then it'll feel pretty sad. Still, it's a passable 1 cost that I wouldn't be embarrassed to put into my decks, so I'm gonna give it a C-. Standoff is a 1 cost rolling 1 to 6 / 2 to 3 blunt with the slash recovering 2 HP on hit. This page is a bit better than cards like Bite Off, but a single power on 1 doesn't inspire confidence 2 chapters later. Unfortunately, this is just another F. Outburst is a 2 cost rolling 3 to 5 blunt, 3 to 4 pierce, and on use, the user discards a page with the lowest cost to restore 2 light. A 0 cost with these rolls is actually pretty good. It'd still be weak because it can't outroll 2 costs, but discarding a page is an incredibly high price to pay without any page draw. I kind of wish this was a 1 cost because then it could be a playable late regen in later chapters, but it's just an F. Handling Work is our next page, rolling 2 to 6, 3 to 4 / 2 to 6 block, with both of the slashes boosting the max value of the next die by 3 on Clash Win. Compared to multi-hit, you're getting a slightly stronger 1 and a much stronger 2 and 3, but only 2 offensive dice. You need to be fairly careful when selecting your clash target, but if you lose, the page isn't embarrassing, and when it hits, it has 3 cost rolls, so I think that makes this a C+. Silent Night is a 1 cost rolling 1 to 6 evade, 1 to 4 slash, 1 to 4 pierce, and it gives 2 endurance next scene on use. This page is used in endurance stacked cheat strategies in endgame, but is otherwise a slightly worse version of Back Attack, so the things I said about that page apply here, but less so, and the ranking of D+ reflects that. Fence is another 1 cost that rolls 1 to 6 evade, 1 to 6 slash, 3 to 4 block, and on use it gives 1 protection to all allies next scene. This page's damage is quite low, and the protection isn't the most useful, but the roll range is passable at least, so I think it's a C-. Your Shield is a 2 cost rolling 2 to 4 block, 2 to 5, 2 to 5 slash, with the block dealing 2 bonus damage on Clash Win. This page is held back by its poor rolls. You want to be clashing with this page because of the block die, but it's often ill-advised as you're quite likely to lose to a lot of pages, which means that this is just a D+. Combat Preparation is next. This is a 2 cost rolling 3 to 4 slash, 2 to 4 block, 1 to 8 evade. It gives 2 endurance to all allies next scene on use. Again, this is used mostly in endurance stacking builds and isn't great here. Having a strong evade on 3 is nice because this page can act like 2 pages when you clash into 2 die pages, but the first 2 rolls are pretty abysmal. In a deck that stacks endurance, this would be a C+, but those are few and far between, so for most purposes, it's just a D. Blade Whirl is a 2 cost rolling 3 to 6 pierce, 2 to 5, 1 to 2 slash. The pierce inflicts 1 paralysis next scene on hit, and the first slash inflicts 1 bleed next scene on hit. Compared to your shield, this page loses half a power, but has a bunch more power on the first die, has 3 offensive dice, and has better effects. This page is at its best as a free hitter since the effects are on hit instead of on Clash Win, but it can still clash reasonably. It's not incredible, but it's good enough to get a C+. Guardian is a 1 cost that rolls 1 to 5 blunt, 1 to 6 slash, and gives 1 endurance to all allies next scene on use. Compared to Standoff, you get half a power and a mass endurance effect in exchange for losing the 2 HP and a more consistent roll range. That's not great, but the mass endurance is enough to get it to a D- rather than an F. Suppress is our next page, being a 2 cost rolling 5 to 7 blunt, 2 to 4 pierce. This page is really similar to Overpower, losing 2 bleed for half a power on both dice. The power being stacked on 1 is nice, but the 2 is a bit of a liability, so I think it's just a C+. Avert is a 1 cost rolling 2 to 4 block 3 to 5 slash with the slash inflicting 2 blinds next seen on hit. This page is significantly worse than Cooking Prep, losing 1.5 power on the block and trained to 2 bleed for the bind. Especially when you consider you get this page later than Cooking Prep, this page is decidedly bad and is a D-. Retaliate is a 3 cost rolling 1 to 10 evade, 4 to 5 3 to 4 pierce, with the evade boosting the first pierce's max value by 3. This is a pretty incredible page. It snuffs most attacks that enemies could throw out at this stage of the game with the evade, and then stacks a bunch of extra juice onto the pierce dice, and even if you lose the first clash, the dice aren't incredibly bad. This page is an instant 3-of in all of your decks, and is very deserving of an A- ranking. Law and Order, unfortunately, is not deserving of that ranking. The 0 cost rolls 2 to 6 slash and deals 2 bonus damage on clash win. Strictly better than Gather Intel, but not by much, as clashing with this page isn't recommended. This is another F. Fierce Onslaught is a 1 cost rolling 2 to 3 pierce, 2 to 3 slash, 1 to 6 pierce, and on use, the user discards a page with the lowest cost. This page is a fairly mediocre discard outlet, as the roll range isn't very good. It free hits decently, but it's just a D in your discard deck and an F anywhere else. White Up is our first playable light regen card. It's a 0 cost that rolls 2 to 3 pierce and restores 1 light on use. On your speed characters, this page can let you keep casting bomb pages for a little longer, but it doesn't really reach its full potential until a bit later. Even so, as a light regen, it's fairly solid and is a B. Gamble is another discard outlet that costs 1 light. This one rolls 3 to 6 slash, 2 to 6 splint, and of course, discards a page with the lowest cost on use. The rolls here are much better than Fierce Onslaught, being comparable to many 2 costs at this stage. In a discard deck, this is a solid B- and an F everywhere else. Daring Decision is a 3 cost rolling 4 to 8 slash, 4 to 8 pierce, 3 to 5 blunt, and on use, you discard all pages from hand. The roll range here is incredible, but the on-use effect keeps it out of any standard decks. Obviously, this shines best in a margin deck, where you can keep spamming this page without needing to worry about pages in hand, and is an A- there, as it is in a brawl deck, but it's an F anywhere else. Stay Calm is a 1 cost rolling 2 to 4 slash, 2 to 3 pierce, 2 to 3 blunt, and the user draws a page when they discard this one. This page is supposed to negate the downside of discard outlets, but it messes with margin so you can't use it there, and there isn't really a reason to run discard page outside of a margin deck, so that's mostly useless text. Interestingly, the roll range is almost identical to Fierce Onslaught, losing only half a power and shifting a bit more power into the first die, so this page is a D in any deck. The Art of Rapid Steps is next. This is a 1 cost rolling 1 to 8 evade, 2 to 8 slash. This page compares nicely to Back Attack, with the same evade die on 1 and the same damage, but trades Back Attack's 2 weak dice for a single fairly strong slash die, meaning that you can actually win clashes with some reliability with this page, which makes it a B. Slice is a much more disappointing 1 cost, rolling 1 to 3, 1 to 4 slash, 1 to 3 pierce. Having a lower roll range than Stay Calm but without any additional effect, there's no reason to ever run this page, and it's just an F. Scratch That is a 3 cost rolling 5 to 10 blunt, 5 to 10 slash, 5 to 10 blunt, but on use, all the dice on the page lose 2 power. Rolling 3 to 8, 3 to 8, 3 to 8 is still really high, and triple offensive dice is really nice. This slots nicely into all your decks as a solid A, but is an A+ in a brawl deck due to being able to abuse the rolls without the power loss. Speaking of, Brawl is our next page, rolling 3 to 6 blunt, 2 to 8, 3 to 5, 3 to 6 slash, with the blunt restoring 1 light on hit, and on use, all the dice on this page get swapped out for a dice on a page in hand as long as it's a 4 cost or lower. Obviously, you need to build around this page really heavily, as copying anything that isn't a 3 or 4 cost page is kind of a disaster. The dice themselves aren't incredibly high, but there are 4 of them, and if you hit the blunt, the page acts like a pseudo 2 cost, which is pretty great. Overall, Brawl has the rolls of a B+, but it acts as an A- page on average if you build your deck properly. LNGU is a 2 cost rolling 4 to 6 blunt, 3 to 5 slash, both inflicting 1 paralysis next seen on hit. This page has the same roll average as Gamble and Suppress, but has 2 paralysis added on, which is a pretty great effect, especially considering that it's on hit rather than on clash win. That makes this a solid 2 cost to C+. Starting Out Lightly doesn't get the same treatment. This page is a 1 cost rolling 2 to 4 blunt, 2 to 6 slash. Pretty mediocre rolls and no effects, just a D+. Shocking Blow is a 2 cost rolling 4 to 12 blunt. Pages with a single strong die are generally pretty bad because you only get a single clash and need to tank the rest of the opponent's page, and it doesn't free hit well since it's only a single die. This page is also fairly inconsistent since it has such a wide roll range. This page hoses ranged pages pretty well, but it's just a C-. Destructive Impact is a 2 cost that rolls 1 to 15 slash. This is the same as Shocking Blow, but more inconsistent, so it's also a C-. Cut In is a 2-cost that rolls 3-6 blunt, 1-6 evade, 3-4 pierce. Compared to LNGU, this page loses half a power and paralysis on both the offensive dice to get a 1-6 evade die wedged in between. Overall, that's worse, especially since the evade is pretty weak, and if it was a block die, I could see this being a C+, but for crimes of evade die, it's just a C. Crush is another 2-cost rolling 3-6 2-5 blunt, with the first blunt inflicting 2 bleed next scene on hit. Again, comparing this page to LNGU, you're losing half a power on the first die and the paralysis on both dice for 2 bleed, which is very much not worth it. This page is also a step down from Cut In and is a C-. Our last card is Loosen Up, a 0-cost rolling 2-6 blunts and restoring 1 light on hit. Compared to Wait Up, you're gaining 1.5 power, but the light regen isn't guaranteed. I personally prefer this one since you're not going to be clashing with your light regen at this point in the game, and the extra damage is nice. I'd say it's on the same tier as Wait Up, and as such is a B. In the next video, we'll be starting to cover the Urban Plague pages. Since Urban Plague has over double the pages of Urban Legend, I'll be splitting it up over 3 videos. It'll be an interesting spread, with the first video covering the Carnival, Full Stop Office, and Dawn Office, the second video covering the Gaze Office, the Kurokuma Clan, and the Musicians of Bremen, and the last video covering the Wedge Office, Lovetown, and the General Receptions. I'll see you soon, and as always, thank you for watching. Hello and welcome back to Library of Ruina Ranked. In this video, I'll be covering the Carnival, Full Stop Office, and Dawn Office. This set of fights finally gives us playable page draw, so let's get started. Our first card is Tailoring. This is our first 4-cost, and it's pretty good, rolling 6-10, 6-10 pierce, both inflicting 3 bleed next scene on hit. It's extremely likely to win clashes and deal a lot of damage. One issue it does have is that since it costs 4 light, it's fairly awkward to play due to librarians having 3 starting light at this point of the game. The damage is really good with the 6 bleed though, so I think that's enough for it to be a B-. Feast is our next card. It's a 2-cost that rolls 5-7 block, 3-4 slash, 1-7 pierce, with both offensive dice recovering 2 HP on hit. The block die is really strong, and the clashing of the 2 and 3 isn't terrible. Compared to Retaliate, the defensive die is slightly stronger, but the offensive dice are slightly weaker. Of course, Retaliate also has the roll boosting, but Feast is quite good and is a solid B-. Will Make Fine Silk isn't as good. This 2-cost rolls 4-6 block, 1-3, 1-2 blunt. The 2 adds a Fascinating Fabric to self and target's hand, and the 3 gains a power for each page in hand. Compared to Feast, the block is 1 power lower, the first blunt is 1.5 power lower, and the second blunt varies, but overtakes Feast at 3 pages in hand. Note that the Fascinating Fabric counts towards the total, but without any page draw, you're likely to only have a higher roll on the first couple of scenes. The Fascinating Fabric also isn't stellar. It's a 3-cost rolling 8-8 block, 6-8 evade. It's not nothing, but it isn't much. Overall, I think that makes Will Make Fine Silk a C-. Will Be Tasty is a 1-cost rolling 1-5 slash, 1-6 evade, 2-4 slash, with both slashes recovering 1 HP on hit. This page is pretty bad. The damage and clashing potential are both low, weak evades aren't where you want to be at, and there aren't any useful status effects. This is just a D. As the Prescript Orders is up next. This 1-cost rolls 2-6 block, 1-4 pierce, with the block restoring 1 light on clash win. While this can be a pseudo 0-cost, having rolls this low is a big liability and makes this page an F. Bizarre Attack is in a similar position. This 1-cost rolls 2-5 evade, 1-4 slash, with the slash dealing 5 bonus stagger damage on hit. The effect here is a lot better, but the overall damage is the same and the clashing potential is even lower, especially since the defensive die he is an evade rather than a block. This is another F. Going for Bullseye is a single-use range 3-cost rolling 6-20 pierce and inflicts 2 fragile next scene on hit. Being a ranged page is a downside, and this page is pretty mediocre anyways. The roll range is massive, and yeah, it'll probably win, but being a 3-cost with a single die isn't great. Even as a melee page, this wouldn't be very good, but as a ranged page, it's just a D+. Return Fire is a ranged single-use 1-cost rolling 1-8 pierce, 3-5 block, with the pierce inflicting 1 feeble next scene on hit. This page has the same roll range as Cooking Prep, having a slightly higher offensive die and a slightly weaker defensive die, but it also has worse dice placement, a slightly worse effect, and is ranged, as well as Cooking Prep kind of falling off at this stage, so this is a C-. Indiscriminate Shots is a single-use 2-cost ranged page that rolls 1-8, 1-8 pierce, 1-8 blunt, with the pierces adding 2 power to the next die on clash lose. While this page is used in firing squad strategies to great effect, those strats aren't covered here, and other than that, this page is just fine. The roll range is really inconsistent, which sucks, but as a free hitter it's pretty good. There's a consolation prize for losing a clash, so I think that makes this a C+. I Hate CQC is our next range page. This is a single use 1 cost rolling 2 to 6, 2 to 6 pierce, 3 to 8 evade, with the first pierce inflicting 1 feeble next scene on hit. This page has decent rolls and is mostly stacked onto the evade die. I think the best way to use this page is to free hit with it and use the evade to blank another page. It can be inconsistent because the opponent can't have a defensive on 1 as their first page, but if you can get it off, it'll feel amazing. I think it's good enough to be a C+. Not Another Step is the best page here in my opinion. This range page is a single use 2 cost rolling 4 to 7, 4 to 7 pierce, 3 to 8 block, with the 2 inflicting 1 feeble next scene on hit. This page has the same roll range as the powered scratch set for 1 light cheaper, which is very good company to keep. Of course, this page is ranged and has a defensive die, but it's convincing enough as a 2 cost for it to be an A. Take the Shot brings us back down to earth. This is a single use 1 cost range page rolling 2 to 6, 2 to 6 blunt, and 1 to 5 pierce. Like Indiscriminate Shots, this page is used in firing squad strategies, but outside of that, it's pretty bad. Compared to I Hate CQC, you trade the 1 feeble and the strong evade for a mediocre pierce. This makes it slightly better at free hitting, but you lose it on the strong evade's clashing potential, which basically removes the entire reason to run the card, so this is a D. Headshot is our next page. This 2 cost single use range page rolls 5 to 12 pierce and inflicts 3 bleed next scene on hit. Compared to Shocking Blow, this page gains half a power into 3 bleed in exchange for being a single use range page. Unfortunately, the one good thing about strong single offensive dice pages, being snuffing range pages, is a moot point here, so I can't really see a use for this page, but the damage and effect is good enough for this to be a D. Target Spotted is our last range page. This single use 1 cost rolls 2 to 6, 2 to 6 pierce, with the second pierce inflicted 1 feeble next scene on hit. Compared to I Hate CQC, you lose the evade die to move the feeble to a worse position. I don't really know what they were thinking with this one, it's just an F. Full Stop to Life is a 2 cost rolling 3 to 7, 3 to 7 slash, with the second slash inflicting 1 feeble next scene on hit. Urban Plague has a lot of pages that are 2 costs with 2 dice and an average roll of 5 and some minor effect. This is our first example, and like this one, they're pretty much all Cs. Beyond the Shadow is another 2 cost rolling 3 to 7 evade, 2 to 5, 2 to 5 slash, with the 2 inflicting 1 bleed next scene on hit, and the 3 inflicting 2 bleed next scene on hit. I think this page is a bit better than Full Stop to Life because the evade can often act like double 3 to 7s because it's reasonably strong, which gives you some extra damage. The bleed is also pretty nice, but it's not incredible, just a C+. Crack of Dawn is a 3 cost rolling 3 to 8 block, 7 to 18 slash down flicks, 3 burn on hit, and on use it gives 2 protection to 2 random other allies next scene. Protection at this stage of the game is still mostly irrelevant, but it's not nothing. 3 burn as well isn't incredible, but not terrible. The rolls are pretty good though. The weak die being a block is nice because it can mitigate strong dice nicely, and the turn will obviously beat almost anything at this stage of the game. While I would have liked to see 3 dice on this page, it's still really efficient, has good clashing, and decent damage. This page is a solid B+, and is a bit stronger in a deck that focuses on burn to maximize the effect. Flash of Sunup is a 1 cost rolling 1 to 5 slash, 1 to 4 evade, 1 to 6 slash, with the evade reducing the power of the opponent's next die by 2 on clash 1, and the 3 inflicting 1 burn on hit. It also draws a page on use. This is our first true page draw, and it's not bad. The clashing is abysmal, the 1 to 4 evade may as well not exist, but the 2 offensive dice means the damage isn't the worst. By virtue of being page draw, this can't be lower than a B-, but it doesn't feel great to have to clash with these. Butterfly Slash is our next page. This is a 2 cost rolling 2 to 7 blunt, 3 to 5 block, 2 to 6 slash, with the slash inflicting 2 burn on hit. Compared to Feast, we gain a power on the offensive dice and a better effect, but lose 2 power on the defensive dice and slightly worse dice placement. I think that means that this is also a B- though. Eject is another 2 cost, this one rolling 3 to 5, 3 to 5 pierce, 2 to 4 block. Both the pierces also reduce the power of the target's current die by 1. This clashes pretty well, having the same effective roll average as Butterfly Slash, but with more power on the offensive dice. It does have the worst dice placement of the 3, but it's still good enough for it to be a B-. Sunset Blade is yet another 2 cost. This one rolls 1 to 6, 1 to 5 slash, 2 to 7 blunt, all inflicting 1 burn on hit. The rolls on this page are pretty bad, but the damage is pretty high, being 3 offensive dice and 3 burn. I wouldn't run more than one of these, but I think that first copy is a C+ purely off of its damage. Handle Request is a 0 cost, rolling 1 to 6 slash, 3 to 4 block, with the slash inflicting 1 burn on hit. This is yet another unplayable 0 cost. These will never be good, and is an F. Our last card today is Stigmatize. This is a 2 cost rolling through to 6 through to 7 pierce, both inflicting 1 bar on hit, and on use the user gets a negative emotion coin. This is about the same as Full Stop to Life. It has slightly worse roll range, but a better effect. I still would never use this page though, and it's just a C. In the next video, we'll be taking on the next set of Urban Plague receptions, that is, the Gaze Office, Kurikumo Clan, and Musicians of Bremen. I'll see you soon, and as always, thank you for watching. Hello and welcome back to Library of Ruina Ranked. In this video, we'll be ranking the cards from the Gaze Office, Kurikumo Clan, and Musicians of Bremen. We get some more solid cards here, so let's get started. Our first card is Observe. This is a 3 cost rolling 2 to 6 block, 2 to 4, 1 to 5 blunt, with the second blunt inflicting 1 paralysis next scene on hit, and on use, the user gains 3 strength next scene. This page is used on strength stacking builds occasionally, but for standard use it's not great because it has 1 cost rolls. It's not unplayable, but you put a lot more effort for a lesser output, so I think this is just a C. Opportunity Spotted is a 1 cost rolling a 3 to 5 block, 1 to 2, 1 to 2 blunt, 1 to 2 slash, with all the offensive dice getting 1 power if the target has paralysis. The joke with this page is if you cast Observe and inflict a paralysis, then it rolls 3 to 5, 5 to 6, 5 to 6, 5 to 6, but it's quite a lot of setup cost to make the page passable. It does have the benefit of guaranteeing 3 emotion coins on a free hit and up to 7 on a clash, but that's really its only upside, and the plethora of downsides makes this a D. Binding Arms is a 3 cost rolling 5 to 15 blunt, inflicting 1 process next scene on hit, and on use, the page's cost is lowered by 1 up to 2 times. This page is fairly interesting. It reminds me of Streamline from Slay the Spire, but this page is pretty bad. At 2 light, it becomes decent, and at 1 light, it becomes pretty good, but it requires you to cast it twice before it becomes a page I'd be happy to play, and before, it's pretty sad being a single offensive die page. I would have liked it more if it reduced the cost of all Binding Arms by 1, but alas, it doesn't, and as such is another D. You're a Hindrance is next. This 1 cost rolls 1 to 5, 2 to 4 pierce, 1 to 7 evade, with the 1 inflicting 1 process next scene on hit. This page has the same roll range as Observe, with slightly worse dice placement. As far as 1 costs go, it's not terrible. The evade can sometimes act as a second page when clashing into 2 die pages or free hitting, but the pierce dice roll so low that you're probably gonna lose most clashes you throw it at. A page that can only free hit needs to have some impressive damage like Sunset Blade, and this doesn't have that, so it's just a C-. Zap is a 2 cost rolling 2 to 7, 1 to 7 block, 3 to 7 pierce, with both the blocks inflicting 1 paralysis next scene on clash win. The rolls on this page are passable, but as a defensive page it has to be pretty great for me to want it. The 2 paralysis is nice, and the offensive die roll isn't terrible, so I think this page is a C overall. Electric Shock is another 2 cost rolling 2 to 8 blunt, 2 to 7 pierce, both inflicting 1 paralysis next scene on hit. Compared to the standard 2 cost rolling 5 on average, this page trades half a power on 2 for a potent effect. I think that means it just stays at a C like the rest of the pages of its type. Structural Analysis is our next page. This is a 2 cost rolling 2 to 6, 3 to 5 pierce, 3 to 7 block, with the first pierce inflicting 1 process next scene on hit. Compared to your Hindrance, you get 1 power on 1 and 2 and half a power on 3 for an extra light. This is a page I wouldn't be embarrassed to clash with, but it's not the best page out there. Compared to Eject, you lose a clashing power on 1 and 2, but gain 1.5 power on the block. The damage is the same, but overall the clashing is worse where it matters, so I think it ends up being a bit worse, but it's still a C+. Unavoidable Gaze is a 1 cost rolling 1 to 7 evade, 1 to 6 pierce, that inflicts 1 paralysis next scene on hit. This is a pretty sad page. 1 to 7 evade is decent, but not good enough to consistently win clashes, as is the 1 to 6 pierce. The free hitting also isn't great due to the single offensive die. Overall, the page feels like a significantly worse version of your Hindrance, which makes this a D. Inkover is a 4 cost rolling 1 to 6 slash, 2 to 8 block, 3 to 10 slash. The 1 gains a power for each card in hand, and the 3 inflicts 3 bleed next scene on hit. This page has pretty incredible clashing when you have a few pages in hand, and the damage is also quite good. You'll want to have at least 2 pages in hand when you cast this, but anything more is just gravy. The main issue with this page is that it has a heavy light and page requirement, so it's a bit unwieldy to use, but it's still a B-. Sharpened Blade is a 2 cost rolling 1 to 3, 1 to 3 slash, 4 to 5 block. The 2 inflicts 2 bleed next scene on hit, and on combat start, slash dice the user plays gain 2 power this scene. Basically rolling 3 to 5, 3 to 5, 4 to 5, this page has decent rolls when casting a single one, as well as boosting your other page assuming it's slash. But things get fairly silly when you cast 2 of them, since they'll both roll 5 to 7, 5 to 7, 4 to 5. It's not hard to make this page incredible, and it's still decent without any thought from the user, so it's another B- from me. Cumulus Wall is a 1 cost rolling 2 to 7, 2 to 4 block, 2 to 5 slash that inflicts 1 bleed next scene on hit. As far as defensive pages go, this is one I like a decent amount. Low light investments and double block dice. That said, the 2 and 3 aren't incredible and it is still a defensive page, but I think it's good enough to be a C alongside Zap. Sky Clearing Cut isn't so lucky. This 2 cost rolls 1 to 5 blunt, 3 to 9 slash. The blunt adds 2 power to the next die on clash lose, and the slash inflicts 2 bleed next scene on hit. When you account for the power gain, this page's average roll is 5.5, which is higher than the John C tier 2 cost pages, but considering you have to lose the first clash, this page is significantly worse than those. At the very least, the damage isn't awful and the bleed is on hit, but this is just a D. Scattering Slash is a 2 cost rolling 1 to 9 evade, 2 to 7 slash, 2 to 5 block, and on combat start the user gains 3 protection. The protection isn't really needed at this stage of the game, so it feels kind of bad having it there instead of more clashing power. The dice aren't awful, but single offensive die isn't great for us. I want to like this page more because the 1 to 9 evade on 1 is fairly strong, but I think it's just a C-. Silent Mist is another 2 cost that gives 3 protection. This one rolls 2 to 7 blunt, 2 to 7 slash, 2 to 3 block. The blunt inflicts 1 bleed next scene on hit, and on use, the user gains 3 protection next scene. Compared to Scattering Slash, you trade 1 power on the block for the evade being turned into a blunt that inflicts a bleed. The protection on next scene is about the same rate as this scene, so whatever. Overall, this page is stronger because double offensive dice, and compared to the classic average 5 roll 2 cost, I think it's better since you get a third die, even if it's weak, so this page is a C+. Rules of the Backstreets is a 0 cost rolling 2 to 8 slash that draws a page on hit. This is our second page draw card and, in my opinion, is far better than Flash of Sunup. The page draw being on hit instead of on use makes it a bit more risky, but clashing is actually possible with this page, and it being a 0 cost isn't nothing. This is a solid piece of page draw and is a B+. Cleanup is a 1 cost rolling 2 to 7 slash that inflicts 1 bleed next scene on hit, and on use it restores 2 light. This is premium light regen and is the best piece for Urban Plague. The clashing isn't awful and it's guaranteed light, so this is another B+. Dark Cloud is a 1 cost rolling 2 to 6 blunt, 2 to 5 slash, and on combat start, the user inflicts 1 bleed on a successful attack with a slash die. You have to build around this a decent amount, but when you do, it can inflict upwards of 7 or 8 bleed in a single scene. The joke is that it triggers Digging Shank, which can inflict even more bleed. Of course, the clashing is pretty bad, even for a 1 cost, so I don't think I can rate it higher than a C. Heavy Peaks is a 3 cost rolling 5 to 18 and on combat start, it inflicts 1 feeble to 2 random enemies. This page is worse than Binding Arms in my opinion. The roll and effect are slightly better, but you do get this page slightly later and you don't get the cost reduction, it's just a D. Unforgettable Melody is a 2 cost rolling 3 to 5 slash, 2 to 3 block, 2 to 6 blunt, and on combat start it gives 1 strength to 2 random allies. The rolls here are pretty bad, and while the strength is a decent reward, it's hard to justify using this page in most cases. One nice thing a player can do is stack a ton of these and make them all fairly threatening, but like with Observe, it seems like it's more effort than it's worth, and is just a C. Hard Rehearsal is our next page. This is a 3 cost rolling 1 to 5 evade, 3 to 8 blunt, 3 to 7 slash. It also restores 2 light on use. Being a pseudo 1 cost, this page is pretty strong. Of course, the initial investment makes it somewhat clunky, and the evade may as well not exist, but it's still a B- for the raw efficiency it has. Shrine to Music is a 2 cost rolling 2 to 4, 3 to 9 blunt, 1 to 2 block. It also inflicts 1 feeble to a random enemy on combat start. This page has the same roll average as Unforgettable Melody, but this one has more of its power stacked onto its 2, and the other 2 dice are pretty malnourished. The effect is also technically slightly worse, but double blunt is nice. All these factors make it a C alongside Unforgettable Melody, but I think it's slightly better. Upbeat Performance is a 1 cost rolling 3 to 7 blunt, 2 to 6 slash. Compared to John 2 cost, you lose 1 power and have no effects on 2 for 1 less light. I'm not entirely sold on that trade-off, as pages that clash better are usually better even if it's less light efficient. It's not a complete disaster to run, but it's just a C for me. Tendon Chords is a fairly divisive page. It's a 2 cost rolling 3 to 5 blunt, 3 to 5 slash. The blunt gives 1 strength to 2 random allies next seen on hit, and the slash recovers 3 HP for 2 random allies on hit. A lot of people were really singing this page's praises, but to me, this looks like a worse version of Unforgettable Melody. The joke is that you can spam these and make it really strong, but in that case, Unforgettable Melody has an extra block die to clash better, and if you were to spam these on one scene, then use bomb pages in the next scene, then you're using a page with terrible clashing. To me, I think that makes this page a D+. Our last page is the red notes. This 1 cost rolls 1 to 5, 1 to 4 blunt, and on combat start, it gives 1 strength to a random ally. This page's rolls are really poor, and the strength doesn't help it out too much. I used to really like this page, but over time I've soured on it as I realized that while giving strength is nice, you'd probably rather just use a page that clash as well. This is just an F, regrettably. In the next video, we'll be finishing the Urban Plague pages with the Wedge Office, Lovetown, and the General Receptions. I'll see you soon, and as always, thank you for watching. Hello, and welcome back to Library of Ruina Ranked. In this video, we'll be finishing Urban Plague with the Wedge Office, Lovetown, and the General Receptions. Let's start off with the Wedge Office. Our first card is Transpierce. This is a 3 cost rolling 6 to 18 pierce, 2 to 7 block, with the pierce dealing 5 damage to the target on hit. This page loses half a power compared to Crack of Dawn and trades to protection and burn for damage. Overall, they're very close. Crack of Dawn is slightly better, but Transpierce sees more use due to the key page of the chapter, and it's a B+ like Crack of Dawn. Sparking Spears are 2 costs rolling 3 to 7 pierce and drawing a page on use. This is the kind of page I like to see in my decks. This is by far the best average 5 roll 2 cost with 2 dice, as compared to other pages that inflict some paralysis or bleed or give an emotion coin. This one draws a page, which is one of the most important resources. The clashing is worse than the best 2 cost clashes, but none of them draw a page, and as such, this is an A. Collision is next. This is a 3 cost rolling 4 to 8 pierce, both of them restoring 1 light on clash win. This page is quite similar to Hard Rehearsal. The offensive dice are a bit stronger, but it loses the guaranteed light restore and the evade die. Since the player selects clashes, they can put themselves in a situation where they're very likely to win, but it means that you're using 3 costs to beat utility pages, so it's not great. Dice type consistency does help, but this is on the same level as Hard Rehearsal and is a B-. Spirit Sweep is a 2 cost rolling 4 to 7 slash, 3 to 5 pierce, with the slash dealing 2 damage to the opponent on clash win. Man, where do I start with this page? I have a personal vendetta against Spirit Sweep because I keep seeing people putting it into their decks despite it being a terrible page. Compared to Sparking Spear, you lose half a power overall, the page draw, and the dice type consistency for 2 damage on clash win. It's also worse than most of the other average 5 roll 2 costs with 2 dice because the effect is basically worthless. The main thing that gets me is that it's in the same reception as Sparking Spear, but people somehow put this in their deck instead of Sparking Spear. This is a C-, but know that it's an F in my heart of hearts. High Speed Stabbing is our next card. This 0 cost rolls 2 to 4 evade, 1 to 5 pierce. This page doesn't clash particularly well, but its free hitting isn't terrible, and as far as 0 costs go, this is probably one of the best ones that doesn't provide utility, but 0 costs that don't draw pages or restore light aren't worth using, and this is no exception, it's just a D-. Searing Sword is a 2 cost rolling 3 to 7 slash, 3 to 7 pierce, both inflicting 2 burn on hit. I actually like this page a reasonable amount as far as Drawn Plague 2 costs go. The 4 burn is a pretty good amount of damage, and I think it's good enough for it to be a C, but not quite for a C+. Feather Shield is another 2 cost rolling 3 to 7 block, 2 to 3 slash, with the blocks inflicting 2 burn on clash win. Again, I like this page a reasonable amount as far as defensive pages go. The 4 burn on the block dice make the damage pretty decent, and the rolls aren't embarrassing. I wouldn't put this page, or Searing Sword for that matter, in a non-burn focused deck, but again, like Searing Sword, this is a C. Faint Memories is a 2 cost rolling 2 to 8 evade, 2 to 6 slash, 2 to 6 blunt, but on use, if the user is on the brink, all the dice gain 2 power. Normally, this page isn't great. The strong evade works well to clash, so the subpar offensive dice can still hit, but in a brink deck, this page is absurd. 4 to 10, 4 to 8, 4 to 8 is 3 cost level rolls, and the placement is also great. Overall, that makes this page an S in a brink deck. Wrath of Torment is a 3 cost, rolling 2 to 8, 2 to 8 blunt, 2 to 7 slash, but on use, the user takes 7 damage and all the dice gain 2 power. Rolling 4 to 10, 4 to 10, 4 to 9, this page punches well above its weight class. It can beat almost anything at this stage at the cost of only 7 HP. There isn't any utility on it, but the clashing power speaks for itself. This is a solid S-. Now we'll move into the General Receptions. Want a taste of this chain is a 0 cost rolling 3 to 5 slash that inflicts 1 bleed next scene on hit, and on use, the page inflicts 1 self bleed next scene and restores 1 light. Overall, this is a fairly solid light regen. Being a 0 cost instead of a 1 cost makes it easy to cast and clean up, and while losing a bit of power in this self bleed make it slightly worse in my opinion, it's still a B. Next we have Your Soft. This 1 cost rolls 3 to 6 blunt, 3 to 5 block. The blunt inflicts 1 bleed next scene on hit, and on use, the page inflicts 1 self bleed next scene. This page has the same roll range as Cooking Prep, but has a worse effect. Considering this is 2 chapters later, that means this is just a D-. Frontal Dodge is a 1 cost rolling 3 to 7 evade, 2 to 7 block. Pages that don't have any offensive dice need to be pretty impressive, and this isn't it. It's just an F. Flank Attack is a 1 cost rolling 1 to 5 block, 4 to 7 slash. The slash inflicts 1 bleed next scene on hit, and on use, the page inflicts 1 self bleed next scene. This page has the same roll range and effect as Your Soft, but with a bit more power on the offensive die. That makes it a bit better, but not enough for it to not be a D-. Here's My Chance is our next page. This is a 2 cost rolling 3 to 7 slash, 2 to 6 blunt. Both the offensive dice inflict 1 bleed next scene on hit, and on use, the page inflicts 3 self bleed and the dice gain 2 power. Rolling 5 to 9, 5 to 8, this page is above average in clashing power, but you really want to be using this page to clash as the 3 self bleed is more damage than Wrath of Torment is dealing to you. It's not terrible, but while the lack of utility on Wrath of Torment was made up for by the ludicrous rolls, these ones are just quite solid, so this page is a B+. Head to Head is a 2 cost rolling 3 to 7, 4 to 7 slash, both inflicting 1 bleed next scene on hit, and on use, the page inflicts 1 self bleed next scene. Compared to Here's My Chance, we're losing out on a decent amount of power to avoid the 2 self bleed. Dice type consistency is nice, but it's still basically just Drawn Plague 2 cost, so it's a C. Now Die is a 3 cost rolling 1 to 8 blunt, 2 to 7 block, 3 to 8 slash. Both the offensive dice inflicts 1 bleed next scene on hit, and on use, the page inflicts 5 self bleed next scene to give all the dice 3 power. Compared to Wrath of Torment, you're almost certainly taking more damage and getting a page that rolls 4 to 11, 5 to 10, 6 to 11. That's an average of 1 power more per die, but we're losing it on triple offensive, and again, taking a ton more damage from the 5 self bleed. I'm still a fan of this page because I like to roll high and self damage doesn't matter too much to me, but it's not nothing, so this page is just an A. Mend Weapon is a 1 cost rolling 1 to 7 pierce. On combat start, it boosts pierce dice power by 1, and on use, it restores 1 light. This is a pseudo 0 cost that rolls 2 to 8, which isn't an awful light power ratio, especially considering that you get to boost your other pierce dice, but it's a page that doesn't clash well, and it doesn't free hit well. The effect is also mostly minimal, and you'd probably just rather play another utility or clashing page, so this is an F. Stab and Detonate is next. This 2 cost rolls 3 to 7, 3 to 6 pierce, but if the first die wins a clash, the second die's max value is boosted by 3. Assuming you win the first clash, this page rolls 3 to 7, 3 to 9, which is decent, but 3 to 7 isn't an incredible roll, and since it's on clash win instead of on hit, this is just a C. Wet is another 2 cost. This one rolls 3 to 5 blunt, 2 to 8 pierce. The blunt restores 1 light on clash win, and the pierce gives 1 strength to the user next scene. If you win both clashes, this page is actually pretty good, but you're quite unlikely to win the first clash unless you're clashing into a utility page, so it's a bit unwieldy to use. If the effects were on hit, it might be a C or C+, but as it stands, it's only a D+. Refine is a 3 cost rolling 3 to 5 pierce, 2 to 4 slash, 2 to 4 pierce. The first and second die boost the max value of the next die by 3, and on combat start, it boosts pierce die power by 2. If you win all the clashes, this page rolls 5 to 7, 2 to 7, 4 to 9. Compared to Wrath of Torment, you're jumping through a lot of hoops for worse clashing. If you're casting another Pierce page alongside this one, then it'll feel pretty good, but I think all that setup means this is just a B+. Low at Night, High at Day is a 0 cost rolling 2 to 6 Pierce, and when discarded, the user gains 1 haste next scene. I don't know why they didn't specify next scene on the page, but I tested it this time. Anyways, you never want to be casting this page, and the utility is worse than pages like Stay Calm, so it's just an F. Relay is a 1 cost rolling 2 to 5 blunt, 1 to 8 evade. The blunt inflicts 1 fragile next scene on hit, and when you discard this page, you draw a page. This page is like Stay Calm and helps the discard archetype out. The 1 to 8 evade means this page isn't a disaster to free hit with, so it gets a C-. Flip the Table is a 2 cost rolling 3 to 6, 2 to 6 blunt. The first die inflicts 1 process next scene on hit, the second die inflicts 1 process next scene on clash win, and when discarded, all allies get 1 haste next scene. Casting this page is pretty bad, and haste isn't worth much even if it's all allies next scene. I think it's an F like Low at Night, High at Day. Shuffle Hands is a 2 cost, rolling 3 to 6 block, 3 to 7 blunt, and on use, the user discards a page with the lowest cost to draw 1 page. The discard draw effect is slightly better than nothing in a vacuum, and if you're running Relay or Stay Calm and don't have other 0 or 1 costs in your hand, then it can act like page draw. That's a lot of setup cost to get a page that's worse than Sparking Spear, so it's just a D. Our last card is Sakura. This 3 cost rolls 2 to 6 evade, 2 to 6 slash, 2 to 5 blunt, but on use, if there are 4 more pages in hand, the user discards 4 random pages to boost the minimum value of offensive dice on this page by 3. This page is pretty bad. Even with the boost, its rolls aren't exactly what I expect from a 3 cost, and under ideal circumstances, you go neutral on your discard effect. If it boosted the power of all dice by 3, then it'd be a different story, but this page is solidly an F tier. In the next video, we'll be starting to cover the Urban Nightmare pages. I'll be doing it in 2 videos this time, with the first one covering the bottom row and the crying children, and the second video covering the index, smiling faces, warp corp, and general receptions. I'll see you soon, and as always, thank you for watching. Hello and welcome back to the Library of Ruina Ranked. In this video, we'll be ranking all the cards from the first row of Urban Nightmare, as well as the Crying Children. This is where we start getting some actually good pages, and we'll be getting right into it with the puppets. Our first page is Automated Movement. This is a 3 cost rolling 2 to 9 evade, 3 to 8 4 to 7 blunt, 3 to 8 evade counter. The evade adds 2 power to the first blunts on Clash Win, and it gives the user 2 haste next scene on use. This page is quite similar to Retaliate. The evade is the same power, but everything else about the page is better. This page will decimate most pages that have 3 dice, especially ones without a defensive odd 1. The main thing holding this page back is that the only utility is an evade counter, which is the worst kind, but that still means this is a fantastic A+ tier page. Mannequin is a 2 cost rolling 4 to 8 block, 3 to 9 evade, 4 to 8 blunt, with the blunt inflicting 1 disarm next scene on hit. This page is fantastic as far as defensive pages go. Great roll range, decent damage, and a decent status effect. Evade on 2 is better than evade on 1 since a lot of pages have block on 1 as well. One note outside of the scope of this list is that it's decent against Red Riding Hooded Mercenary because disarm weakens the wolf's block counter like gives strength on Clash Win. Overall, this makes this page an A-, which is great for a defensive page. Next, we have Repressed Flesh. This is a 3 cost rolling 4 to 7 block, 4 to 9 blunt, 3 to 7 blunt counter. It draws a page on use. The first blunt reduces the power of the target's current defensive die by 3, and the second blunt deals 3 stagger damage to the target on hit. This page is pretty bonkers. These are my brother's thoughts on this page.
Repressed Flesh!
Yeah, I pretty much agree. The utility on this page is insane with the page draw, offensive counter, and situational defensive dice sizing, and the rolls are also very good. All that, combined with triple dice type consistency with the counter, means this is an S tier page. Forceful Gesture is a 3 cost rolling 4 to 8 block, 5 to 16 blunt. It draws a page on use, and it inflicts 1 feeble, disarm, and binds next scene on hit. This is the blunt version of cards like Transpierce and Crack of Dawn, and keeping in line with the theme of Puppets pages being disgustingly strong, this is the best one. The block die is slightly stronger than either, and while the offensive die is the weakest of all of them by a bit more than the block, the effects are by far the best. The 3 stats defects are already better than the burn and protection of the bonus damage, but throwing and drawing a page is just nuts. Of course, it still has the weakness of being a 3 cost with 2 dice, but all the effects this page have make it a solid A in my books. Gigigig is a 1 cost rolling 3 to 6 block, 3 to 6 blunt, and restores 2 light on use. This is top tier light regen for the time. I personally think that utility pages with block dice are better than other utility pages because you can clash with them without feeling too bad because you're absorbing cells of damage, and this one has great rolls as well, only being slightly lower than the generic Plague 2 costs, but this one's a -1 cost, so that makes it an S-. Creek is our next page. This 2 cost rolls 5 to 8 3 to 7 blunt, 4 to 6 block. Despite having no utility, Creek makes up for it by having disgustingly high roll range. Typically, pages with 3 dice have the lower roll average than 2 die pages because the power budget is spread out between 3 dice, but this page's 5.5 average roll is higher than pretty much all other 2 costs, and it can often contend with 3 costs, especially since it has dice type consistency. All this means this 0 utility 2 cost gets an S- grade. Our last Puppets page is Puppet Blockade. This is a 0 cost rolling 2 to 7 block, 2 to 4 blunt, and it restores 1 light on use. Compared to Gigigig, this page loses 1.5 power on the blunt to be easier to cast. The fact that the block die is the same power as Gig makes the ease of casting worth more in my opinion, and this is usually my 4th light regen singleton dex, and because of that, this is another S tier page. Sharp Nails is a 3 cost rolling 4 to 8 block, 5 to 8 blunt, 4 to 9 pierce, 3 to 7 slash counter, and the pierce recovers 5 stagger resist on hit. This page is our repressed flesh at home. You get half a power on the block die and 5 stagger resist instead of 3 stagger damage on 3, but you lose out on the dice type consistency, page draw, and defensive dice housing. If this page had dice type consistency, it'd be a bit better, but as it is, it's an A+, which is still quite solid. Circus Knives is our first bad card of the video. This is a 1 cost rolling 3 to 7 blunt, 2 to 6 slash, and the blunt inflicts 2 bleed Nexian on hit. There isn't any relevant utility, and the clashing power is quite bad. Considering we saw Gig, which has the same roll average but is 2 light cheaper, this is just a C-. Juggling is a 1 cost single use range page rolling 6 to 11 blunt and inflicts 1 process Nexian on hit. Compared to Headshot, this is 1 light cheaper and inflicts a better stats defect, but it's an entire chapter later, so this is a D. Wildcard is another 1 cost single use range page. This one rolls 4 to 8 pierce, 3 to 8 blunt, with the pierce recovering 2 HP on hit. This page is a little better than Juggling because it has a higher roll average, but it's still pretty bad and is just a D+. Boundary of Death is our next card. This page is a 4 cost rolling 1 to 4 pierce, but if it naturally max rolls a 4 or higher, it gains 45 power. This is a meme page. If you roll high, you'll feel like a genius, but you're gambling on a 25% chance, and if it misses, it's abysmal. There are ways to increase the chances to about 75%, but that's much later and still not very good, so this unfortunately is just an F. Extreme Edge is a 2 cost rolling 6 to 12 slash and inflicts 1 disarm Nexian on hit. This is a pretty solid 1 die 2 cost page, but those pages aren't great unless you're clashing into ranged pages. The disarm is nice, but I can't give this anything higher than a C. Flashing Strike is a 2 cost rolling 3 to 7 3 to 6 slash 2 to 5 evade. Additionally, if the user's speed is 6 or higher, all the dice gain 2 power. When unempowered, this is very unimpressive, but empowering it makes it roll higher than Creek. Unfortunately, the requirement is very inconsistent unless you build around it, and the pages that give haste are generally not good. In fact, the only one worth using so far is automated movement, and at that point, you may as well just build Blunt with Creek as your 2 cost. Overall, the inconsistency of this page means that it's a B. Flying Sword is a 1 cost rolling 2 to 6 3 to 7 slash, and on use, the user gains 2 haste next scene. This is supposed to be the Flashing Strike enabler, but its roll range is pretty low. Granted, it does fill its role as an enabler, but as I implied when talking about Flashing Strike, the juice isn't worth the squeeze, and this is the worst of the 2 pages. It gets a C from me. Endless Battle is up next. This is a 2 cost rolling 4 to 7 block, 3 to 6 blunt, 3 to 7 slash, but if the user is on the brink, the dice gain 1 power. Compared to Faint Memories, this page is stronger unempowered, but weaker empowered. Since you're basically never going to want to use this page unempowered, it's entirely overshadowed by Faint Memories. It also lacks the dice type consistency of Creek, which is a pretty big deal. That means that this is an A in a brink deck. Desperate Struggle is a 1 cost rolling 3 to 5 2 to 5 slash. On the start of Clash, the user takes 5 damage and the dice gain 2 power. Rolling 5 to 7 4 to 7 is good for a 1 cost, and it does have dice type consistency. Taking 5 damage isn't nothing, but it's not a deal breaker. I honestly dismissed this page first time around, but its rolls are good enough to contend with 2 costs and some 3 costs, so I think that makes this a B-. To Overcome Crisis is a 0 cost rolling 2 to 7 slash. It draws a page on use, and on hit, if the user is on the brink, they restore 1 light. In a non-brink deck, this is a side grade to Rules of the Backstreets, losing half a power to guarantee the page draw. That's a B- tier page on its own at this point of the game, but the light regen really tips this over the edge. In a brink deck, this is the oil that keeps the machine running, it is an easy S+. 3331973 is a 2 cost single use page rolling 3 to 8 pierce, 3 to 7 block. It also gives the user persistence for 4 scenes on use. The rolls of this page are pretty bad, and the effects is also pretty worthless. It's a page that'll only help you when you're losing, so I guess it's synergistic because running this page makes you more likely to lose. It's an F. Trash Disposal is a 2 cost rolling 2 to 7 block, 3 to 8 blunt, 2 to 4 block, 2 to 3 pierce. All the offensive dice recover 2 HP on hit, and the pierce gets recycled every time it rolls a 3 up to 6 times. This page is actually really good if you can get a couple of recycles, and the only reason it doesn't see use is because it's exclusive to the sweeper pages. The damage is good and the recovery is good. The main thing I don't like about this page is that it's a bit inconsistent, but that just means it's an A- instead of higher. Sweep the Backstreets is our next page. This 2 cost rolls 4 to 7 pierce, 2 to 6 block, 3 to 7 slash. The pierce inflicts 2 paralysis next turn on hit, and the slash recovers 3 HP on hit. Compared to Creek, this has a 0.67 lower roll average and no dice type consistency for better dice placement and some utility. The HP is whatever, but 2 paralysis is quite powerful. I would say the status effects make up for the lack of dice type consistency, but the roll average means this is just a B+. For the family is another 2 cost rolling 4 to 7 pierce, 3 to 7 evade, 3 to 7 blunt. On combat start, 2 random allies get 1 protection and the pierce inflicts 2 bleed next turn on hit. Again, comparing this page to Creek gives us a 0.5 lower roll average and no dice type consistency for utility and better dice placement. I'd say this page is a bit worse than Sweep the Backstreet since the statuses are worse and the evade is worse than the block, but the roll range keeps it in B+. Extract Fuel is a 1 cost rolling 3 to 7 pierce, 2 to 6 block. It restores 2 light on use and recovers 2 HP on hit. This is a side grade to Giggy Gig. Same roll range, worse dice placement, slightly worse defensive die, but has some HP recovery. This is another S-, just like Giggy Gig. Night in the Backstreets is a 1 cost rolling 6 to 9 blunt, 5 to 9 pierce. The blunt recovers 3 HP and the pierce recovers 2 HP, but on combat start, all the dice the user plays lose 2 power. This rolls 4 to 7, 3 to 7, which is worse than Desperate Struggle, but since it also affects your other die, this page is pretty much useless. F tier. Blazing Strike is a 4 cost rolling 13 to 28 blunt and inflicts 10 burn on hit, but can only be used at emotion level 3 and above. 10 burn is a pretty crazy amount, and it's very likely to hit, but being a 4 cost with a single die with a play restriction makes it very clunky to use. If you can cast it multiple times you'll be in good shape, but I think the opportunity cost makes this a C-. Our last page is Fierce Charge. This is a 2 cost rolling 7 to 12 slash, inflicting 3 burn on hit. Compared to Extreme Edge, you lose your disarm for half a power and 3 burn. I think that's slightly worse and is another C-. In the next video, we'll be ranking the rest of their pages in Urban Nightmare. I'll see you soon, and as always, thank you for watching. Hello and welcome back to Library of Ruina Ranked. In this video, we'll be ranking the cards from the Index Proselytes, Smiling Faces, Warp Cleanup Crew, and the General Receptions. Here we get some of the best pages, so let's get right into it with the Index Proselytes. So where the Prescript points is a 2 cost rolling 4 to 7, 3 to 7 pierce, with the first pierce inflicting 1 fragile next turn on hit, and if your deck is singleton, the dice gain 1 power. This is a fairly good 2 cost for pierce decks. Rolling 5 to 8, 4 to 8 is reasonably above average, and the extra fragile is nice as well. Of course, it falls short of the power of Creek, but most 2 costs do, and this is a solid B. Undertake Prescript is another 2 cost, rolling 3 to 6, 3 to 5 blunt, 1 to 4 pierce, and if your deck is singleton, the dice gain 1 power. This page is significantly worse than the other singleton pages. Rolling 4 to 7, 4 to 6, 2 to 5 when empowered still makes it roll 0.83 lower than Creek. Forcing your deck to be singleton for a card that's significantly worse than Creek is not where I want to be, but of course, being compared to Creek means it can't be unplayable, and that's true, it's just a C-. Execute is the slash 2 cost singleton payoff. This page rolls 3 to 5, 3 to 6 slash, but if your deck is singleton, the first die gets 4 power. Rolling 7 to 9 on 1 is pretty great and will win most clashes. 3 to 6 leaves a lot to be desired, and there isn't any utility like onto where the Prescript points, despite having the same roll average. Still, I think having a stronger 1 and weaker 2 is better than the fragile, and better enough that this page gets a B+. Will of the Prescript is a 3 cost, rolling 3 to 8 evade, 4 to 8, 4 to 7 pierce, and if your deck is singleton, it draws 3 pages on use. What a card this is. With a slightly higher roll average than Creek, this page's rolls are underpowered for Urban Nightmare. However, this page has some of the best utility in the game. Drawing 3 pages means you'll almost never run out of pages unless your draw is particularly bad, even if you're not running any other page draw, and you should probably still be running at least Repressed Flesh. This is in the top 5 pages in the game in my opinion, and is an easy S+. Faith is a 1 cost, rolling 3 to 8 pierce, 2 to 6 slash, and it restores 1 light on use. Being a pseudo 0 cost doesn't really help this page out as the rolls aren't very good. You'd generally rather just cast a page that's grade clashing, but this page is efficient enough to escape from being an F, but only enough to get it to a D. Sense Core is another 1 cost. This one rolls 2 to 5, 2 to 5 block, 3 to 7 pierce. The pierce inflicts 1 bind on hit and on use. If the user has 7 or more pages in hand, all the dice gain 2 power. Getting 7 pages in hand is not an easy task, even with Will of the Prescript. The payoff you get is a decent page, but without the power boost it's pretty abysmal, and is an F. Proselyte's Blade is next. This 1 cost rolls 7 to 11 blunt, 7 to 10 pierce, but on combat start, all the dice the user plays lose 3 power. Rolling 4 to 8, 4 to 7, this page has good clashing for the cost, but it also reduces the power of your other die slot, basically removing 2 light worth of power from it. It sees some use in certain receptions that have power null effects because the base rolls are really good, but for standard play, it's an F. Deep Drag is a 3 cost rolling 6 to 19 blunt, 1 to 9 evade. The blunt inflicts 7 smoke on hit and it draws a page on use. This is another version of strong offensive, weak defensive, and is probably the best version of it so far. 7 smoke is really good as a status defect, and drawing a page is also great. 1 to 9 isn't amazing for an evade since you can low roll with it, but it's pretty good, and if you high roll you'll feel like a genius. I've been pretty impressed by this page as an enabler for smoke infliction decks, and I'll give it an A-. Flesh Fillet is our next page. This 2 cost rolls 4 to 8, 3 to 7 slash, with the first slash inflicting 1 bleed on hit, and the second inflicting 1 bleed for each 2 smoke on the target on hit, and on use, the user consumes 2 smoke to boost the power of the dice by 2. This page can inflict up to 6 bleed and rolls 6 to 10, 5 to 9, which is basically what tailoring does for half delight. Of course, this page requires quite a bit more setup, needing to have some amount of self-smoke and quite a lot of smoke infliction, but if you can fulfill these conditions, then this is a great value page, and is another A-. If you like good smoke infliction, then it's probably just a B, and if you want to stack smoke on yourself, then it's not ideal either. Inhale Smoke is a 1 cost rolling 2 to 8 block, 3 to 8 blunt. On use, the user gains 3 smoke, and the blunt gives the user 4 smoke on hit. Getting up to 7 smoke with a single page is quite good, and the rolls aren't horrible, but this page suffers from 1 cost value page syndrome a decent amount. There isn't quite enough utility for me to call this a utility page, but it's not a terrible enabler, so it gets a C+ from me. Trace of Fumes is a 2 cost rolling 4 to 8, 3 to 7 blunt, 3 to 5 block. The first blunt inflicts 1 smoke on hit, and the second inflicts 2 smoke on hit. Compared to Creek, this is definitely a worse page, rolling half a power lower on 1 and 1 power lower on 2, but this page is still pretty good. 3 smoke isn't a huge amount, but smoke is busted and a 30% damage increase is nothing to sneeze at. I like to run this as my second copy of Creek in a singleton deck, and it's decent overall at an A ranking. Hidden Blade is a 1 cost rolling 2 to 9 evade, 4 to 8 slash. The slash inflicts 2 bleed on hit, and on use, the user consumes 2 smoke to boost the power of the dice by 2. This page is an upgraded version of Art of Rapid Steps. When empowered, it has basically the same roll range as tailoring. Again, this takes some setup and the damage is much lower since there's only 1 offensive and 2 bleed, but these rolls are that of a good 2 cost, and for that, this page gets an A- in a deck with incidental smoke gain, but it's somewhat worse than a deck that wants to have 10 smoke on self, much like Flesh Fillet. Smoking Pipe is a 0 cost rolling 3 to 8 block, 1 to 6 evade, and on use, the user gains 2 smoke and restores 1 light. This is our smoke light regen, and it's pretty good. I like defensive dice on my utility pages because it means I can clash with them reasonably, and the 3 to 8 block helps prevent a lot of damage. The smoke generation isn't too high, but it's enough to trigger Hidden Blade or Flesh Fillet if they're used on the same scene. This is a premium light regen, and is an A+. Loss of Senses is next. This is a 3 cost rolling 5 to 8 block, 5 to 9 blunt, 4 to 9 slash. The blunt inflicts 2 paralysis and 1 feeble on hit if the target has 7 or more smoke, and the slash draws 2 pages on hit if the target has 3 or more smoke. This is a fantastic smoke infliction payoff. Getting the page draw is fairly easy, and while you won't always get the paralysis and feeble, you don't need to in order for the page to be great. If you can't trigger either effect, then the page isn't good, but it's so easy to get the page draw, which is 2/3 of a Will of the Prescript with much better rolls, so this makes it to an S-. Rip Space is a 2 cost rolling 2 to 4 pierce, 3 to 6 slash. On use, the user expends all charge and rolls charge equal to 9.9% times all the charge expended. On a success, the dice gain 8 power, and on failure, the user takes 20 self damage. Additionally, the pierce draws 2 pages on Clash Win, and if 10 charge was spent at once, the slash die gained 2 power. This is an incredibly busted page that's normally held back by the key pages it's available on. Rolling 10 to 14, 13 to 16 and drawing 2 pages is obviously disgustingly broken, even if you need to expend 10 charge to do it. In a vacuum, this is one of the best pages in the game and is an easy S+. Dimensional Rift brings us back down to earth. This 2 cost rolls 4 to 8, 3 to 8 slash and gives the user 6 charge on use. This is just a solid charge enabler, good clashing, dice type consistency, and a great effect. This is a B. Ripple is a 3 cost rolling 2 to 5 evade, 5 to 17 blunt. On use, the user expends 3 charge to boost the power of all dice by 3, the evade boosts the blunt dice power by 2 on clash lose, and the blunt inflicts 2 binds next scene on hit. Rolling 5 to 8, 8 to 20 by default is pretty good, and you get a consolation prize of a stronger hit with the blunt if the evade die loses. The utility is pretty bad, but the raw power it has makes this a solid B. Overcharge is a 3 cost rolling 5 to 13 pierce, 4 to 12 slash, 5 to 11 pierce, 2 to 6 block counter, and on use, the user gains 10 charge and becomes immobilized next scene. Obviously, these rolls are extremely high and will beat almost anything, but the downside far outweighs the benefit. This page is decent in brawl decks and very good on purple tier's guard stands, but as it stands, it's an F for standard play. Rewind is up next. This one cost rolls 2 to 9 evade, 2 to 5 block, 2 to 6 pierce. On use, the user gains 4 charge and the pierce recovers 3 HP on hit. This is a defensive page I actually like a decent amount. The strong evade is likely to win quite a few clashes and the charge generation is decent. It's worse than most of the other Warp Court pages, but it's still a B-. Leap is a 1 cost rolling 3 to 7 slash, 3 to 5 blunt, and on use, the user gains 1 haste next scene and spends 3 charge to draw 2 pages. 1 light for 2 pages is an incredible rate, and this page makes charge deck economy extremely good. The clashing is abysmal and the damage isn't great, but the raw efficiency and utility cannot be understated. This is an S. Energy cycle is a 0 cost rolling 2 to 7 pierce, 2 to 4 blunt. The user gains 3 charge on use, and the pierce restores 1 light on hit. This is the charge light regen, and is quite good. Double offensive means you probably can't clash with it, but the light regen being on hit already incentivizes free hitting, so the downside's sort of diminished. Charge gain is important to unlocking many of the most busted pages, so anywhere you can sneak in a bit of charge is great, and so this page is an A+. Engagement is a 0 cost rolling 1 to 8 slash, and on use adds an on guard to the user's hand. On guard is a single use 2 cost rolling 6 to 10 slash, and on use gives 1 strength to the target and user next scene. Both of these pages are bad and not worth casting, an easy F. Riposte is a 1 cost rolling 3 to 7 block 4 to 8 slash, with the block adding 1 power to the slash on clash win. The clash is alright for the light cost, but not good enough to overcome 1 cost value page syndrome. This is just a D. Flesh is a 2 cost rolling 5 to 13 pierce that deals 4 stagger damage and inflicts 1 fragile next scene on clash win. This page has the same roll range as Extreme Edge, but a slightly worse effect. It's still a C though. Mullen is a 3 cost rolling 5 to 9 slash, 5 to 9 blunt, 3 to 8 slash. The first 2 dice boost the max value of the last die by 2 on clash win, and the last die inflicts 2 fragile next scene on clash win. This page has slightly higher rolls than Wrath of Torment when fully empowered, and has additional upside beyond that. It's harder to get the full value, and you get this page a bit later than Wrath of Torment, but it's still an S-. Draw of the Sword is next. This is a 0 cost rolling 3 to 6 slash and restoring 1 light on use. Compared to Want a Taste of this chain, you get a half a power and lose this self and target bleed. You also get this page a chapter later for basically the same page, so it's just a B-. Acupuncture is a 1 cost rolling 3 to 7 pierce, 2 to 4 slash. On combat start, it boosts slash dice power by 1, the pierce boosts the slash dice max value by 2, and the slash restores 1 light on clash win. This page is similar to Men's Weapon from the last chapter. Even with all the boosts, the clashing isn't that great, and you'd rather choose a page with better clashing or better utility. It's better than Men's Weapon, but still just a D. Yield My Flesh is a 2 cost rolling 5 to 10 slash that on clash lose adds a copy of To Claim Their Bones to the user's hand. To Claim Their Bones is a single use 5 cost rolling 14 to 23 slash counter that inflicts 5 paralysis and 3 bleed next scene on hit. This page used to be better, but with the counter dice rework, you only snuff the fastest page an opponent plays with this. Yield My Flesh has worse clash than Extreme Edge, and To Claim Their Bones is also generally not worth using. This is an F. Overthrow is a 3 cost rolling 3 to 6 slash, 2 to 8 block, and on combat start, it boosts slash dice power by 3 for the scene. When combined with a page with double slash, this is pretty good, but like many pages that boost dice power in combat start, you'd probably rather just clash with a page that clashes well. This is just a D. Our last page today is Slay. This is a 2 cost rolling 3 to 8, 3 to 6 slash. The 1 gives the user 1 strength next scene on clash win, and the 2 restores 1 light on hit. This page is like Wet, but rolls slightly higher, has dice type consistency, and all of the effects got changed to on hit. I didn't like Wet very much, and I don't like Slay very much either. It's definitely better than Wet, but you get it an entire chapter later, so the grade is the same and a D+. In the next video, we'll be starting the next chapter, Star of the City. I'll be splitting it up into 5 videos. The first will cover both chapters of the Leo Section 2 and Thumb. The second chapter will cover the Kane Office, Church of Gears in Leo Section 1. The third one will cover the Index Proxies in R-Corp. The fourth will cover Xiao, Yan, and the Purple Tier. And the last video will cover the General Receptions. I'll see you soon, and as always, thank you for watching. Hello and welcome back to Library of Ruina Ranked. In this video, we'll be covering the Leo Association Section 2 and Thumb Syndicate. Our first page is Emotional Turbulence. This page is a 3 cost that rolls 4 to 8 block, 5 to 9 pierce, 4 to 9 slash, 3 to 7 block counter. The pierce inflicts 2 burn on hit, the slash inflicts 1 burn on hit, and on use, the dice gain 1 power for every 2 emotion levels. This is a pretty incredible bomb page. While the utility is lower than Repressed Flesh, the clashing starts slightly better and gets better and better as the reception goes on. At this point of the game, page draw starts being less important because of the power of Will of the Prescript, and dice type consistency starts mattering less due to universal power boosters like Fervor. All that means this page gets an S rating. Our next page is Inner Ardor. This is a 2 cost rolling 4 to 9 block, 6 to 10 slash, and on use, the user gains 1 positive emotion coin. This page has solid clashing but lacks good utility and damage. 2-die clashing pages are starting to fall off here, and Inner Ardor can only manage a C+. Flow of the Sword ends up even worse though. This 2 cost rolls 4 to 8 3 to 8 slash, with the 1 inflicting 2 burn on hit, the 2 inflicting 1 burn on hit, and at emotion level 3 or higher, it only costs 1 light. This page has the same roll average as Dimensional Rift, but lacks the strong utility that Rift gives. The damage isn't awful, but it's only a bit better than Searing Sword, which you get in Urban Plague, so this page is a D+. Sturdy Defense is a 3 cost rolling 3 to 10 evade, 8 to 17 block, 3 to 6 pierce. The block draws a page on Clash Win, the pierce inflicts 2 burn on hit, and on use, it draws a page. This page is one of the stronger defensive pages, but a couple of factors hold it back. First, and most obviously, the damage is quite low even for defensive page standards with a single 3 to 6 and a 2 burn. The other main factor is its dice composition. While strong evades are usually good, this page's main purpose is to snuff strong 2s, but against pages with a weak offensive than a strong offensive, the evade will eat the first die and then lose to the second die, leaving the block unused for its intended purpose. Still, it's a pretty great page, and while I generally don't use it, I can see the appeal of semi-consistent 2-page draw, and this page is deserving of its A- ranking. Fleet Edge is next. This is a 2 cost rolling 2 to 6 evade, 4 to 8 3 to 8 pierce, both giving the user 1 haste next seen on hit. Compared to Flow of the Sword, you lose the burn and cost reduction for haste in an evade die. 2 haste is better than 3 burn, and a 2 to 6 evade is worth more than costing 1 less light at emo 3 and above. However, the rolls are still a bit anemic, especially the evade die, which will not often do anything if you're not clashing to a utility page. It's playable, but nothing fantastic, so I think that means this is a C+. Rushdown is a 1 cost rolling 3 to 7 blunt, 3 to 7 pierce. The 1 reduces the power of the target's current defensive die by 2, the 2 inflicts 1 burn on hit, and on combat start, offensive dice deal 1 extra damage to the scene. This page has quite a lot going on, but unfortunately it's not great. The dice are fairly weak, so it's hard to clash into non-utility pages with this, which reduces the effectiveness of the defensive die hosing, and the combat start effect will give you about 4 to 8 extra damage under ideal situations. While that's not nothing, pages that can't clash well and don't have good utility aren't very good. This page isn't a disaster, but it's only a C-. Frontal Assault is next. This is a 0 cost rolling 2 to 7, 1 to 2 pierce, and on use, it restores 1 light. This is the Leo light regen, and it's alright. Double offensive dice is bad for utility pages in my opinion, but you do get a guaranteed emotion coin from the 1 to 2 die. It's not incredible like the Urban Nightmare light regen, but it's a decent piece of light regen and gets a B+. Forming Storm is a 4 cost rolling 8 to 20 slash that inflicts 3 burn on hit, but on use, it removes all the dice from the page and adds Raging Storm harm to the user's hand next scene. Raging Storm harm is a 1 cost mass individual rolling 8 to 20 slash and inflicts 3 burn on hit, but it can only be used this scene. Overall, you pay 5 light for this mass attack, which is a very good rate, but you do need to use one of your dice to do nothing, which limits the effectiveness of the page. My opinion on masses is that they're inherently powerful and need to be pretty awful to not be worth using, and this page is no exception. It's not the best, but not the worst, and gets an A- from me. Taishang Kao is a 3-cost rolling 5 to 6 pierce, 8 to 21 blunt, 3 to 7 pierce counter, with the blunt inflicting between 1 and 6 burn depending on the user's emotion level. This page is a bit awkward because of the weaker 1 making it hard to clash effectively with it, and the strong 2 makes you want to clash with it to get the most out of it. I'd say this page would be better if the pierce was a block, but the counter die is good enough to get this page a B. Gale Kick is a 2-cost rolling 7 to 13 pierce, 2 to 6 pierce counter, with the pierce drawing a page on hit. This is a solid utility page, having a page draw on a counter die. The page draw being on hit hurts a little bit, but is strong enough to win most of the time. There isn't too much to say about this page, and it's just a solid B+. High Kick is next. This is a 1-cost rolling 5 to 10 blunt and draws a page on hit. This page isn't as good. The counter die is the big reason as to why Gale Kick was good, and this page's rolls just aren't there, so despite being cheaper, it's just a C. Ardent Wall is a 2-cost rolling 5 to 8, 4 to 8 block, 2 to 6 pierce, and on use, the user gains 1 endurance next scene, but at emotion level 3 or higher, you gain 2 endurance instead. This is fairly mediocre for most cases. Endurance stacking builds like it fine enough, but of course, if your entire floor is stacking endurance, then you'd rather run combat preparation. This plays decently in standard defensive decks though, and is a C+. All Out War is a 1-cost rolling 4 to 9 block, 4 to 8 slash, and on use, the user gains 1 positive emotion coin. Compared to Inner Ardor, you trade 2 power on the slash for the page being 1 light cheaper. In this case, it does actually make the page stronger in my opinion. The rolls are still high enough to clash decently well, and the utility is the same. It's not amazing by any means, but it's good enough to be a B-. Our first stun page is Reload. This is a 1-cost rolling 3 to 7 pierce, 2 to 7 blunt, and on use, you get a random ammunition and draw a page. There are 3 kinds of ammo that all exhaust on use or discard. Armor piercing ammo rolls 3 to 7 slash and reduces the power of dice clashing into the user's range page by 1 per ammo. Frost ammo rolls 3 to 7 slash and makes the user's range pages inflict 1 paralysis and disarm on hit per ammo. Flame ammo rolls 3 to 7 blunt and makes the user's range pages inflict 2 burn on hit. Ammo is fine, but the page draw is where the magic is. This gives them decks great page econ and is a solid A. Bayonet Combat is next. This is a 2-cost rolling 3 to 7 block, 5 to 7 blunt, 4 to 6 pierce, and on use, it adds 2 random ammo to the user's hands. This page is a pretty good ammo enabler, having comparable rolls to Creek, but losing dice type consistency. Ammo is nowhere near the value of drawing a page of course, but it's good enough for Bayonet Combat to be a B-. Suppressing Shot is a 1-cost range page rolling 4 to 8 pierce, 4 to 7 blunt. The pierce inflicts 1 bleed next scene on hit, and on use, the user discards a page with the lowest cost, and if an ammo page was discarded, all the dice gain 1 power. This is one of the 4 ways to expend ammo, and is the worst one in my opinion. The clashing isn't amazing, the utility isn't great, and as always, being a range page is more of a liability than an upside. This is just a C-. Shock Rounds is our next page. This 2-cost range page rolls 5 to 10 blunt, 5 to 7 pierce. The blunt deals 3 stagger damage on hit, and on use, the user discards 2 pages with the lowest cost from hand, and then draws a page, and for each ammo discarded, the dice gain 1 power. This page is decent overall. You get to expend a decent amount of ammo and get a real page out of the deal. If you're discarding non-ammo pages, it's bad of course, but there's enough ammo generation that it's usually not an issue. The rolls are decent as well, so this page gets a B-. Focus Fire is a 3-cost range page rolling 7 to 17, 4 to 8 pierce. The 1 inflicts 1 fragile next scene on hit, and on use, the user discards up to 4 0-cost pages, and offensive dice gain 1 power for each ammunition discarded this way. This is the best way to expend a ton of ammo at once, and can get pretty crazy if you stack up a bunch of ammo. In high ammo econ decks, you'll often end up wasting page draws due to the page limit of 8, so Focus Fire can get them out of your hand in a hurry, and if your generation wasn't great, you can only discard 0-cost pages, so you can't get punished too hard for it. Overall, this page is a B+. Ferris Guard is a 1-cost rolling 3 to 8, 3 to 7 block, 2 to 5 slash. This is a very simple page, but fairly effective as far as defensive pages go. If you need to block some damage on the cheap, this is a good way to do it. Unfortunately, like most 1-costs that don't provide utility, it's never going to be amazing, but it's good enough to be a C. Steel Knuckles is a 2 cost rolling 4 to 8, 3 to 7 blunt, 2 to 6 / counter, and on use, it draws a page. This is an alternative to Gale Kick and is the superior version. The page draw being on use instead of on hit means that it's safer to use this page, and the damage is higher overall. This is a fantastic utility page and gets an A. Summary Judgment is next. This is a 2 cost rolling 3 to 7 evade, 3 to 6 slash, 5 to 10 pierce. On use, it discards a page with the lowest cost, and if an ammunition was discarded, all offensive dice gain 1 power. While this doesn't trigger ammunition effects since it's a melee page, the rolls are quite high, especially with the pierce. Unfortunately, if you don't have an ammo, then this is card disadvantage, which is bad, but you shouldn't be in a situation where that happens very often, so this page is a B+. Discipline is a 4 cost rolling 2 to 6, 4 to 8 block, 3 to 5 slash, 3 to 7 blunt. The blunt is rolled 3 times, and the page power nulls itself in the target's page. This is a decent counter page. Power nulling can be very powerful, and double block alongside it can reduce a ton of damage. Of course, the null is more downside than upside considering this page rolls with 4 offensive dice, but it's still good enough to be a B-. Le Rigole is a 3 cost rolling 5 to 11 pierce, 5 to 10 slash, 3 to 8 block counter, and on use, all allies deal 2 extra damage with offensive dice next scene. The rolls here are decent, but nothing spectacular, especially for a 3 cost with 2 dice. The block counter is nice, but the real magic comes with the 2 bonus damage to all allies. That'll deal 8 to 16 extra damage per librarian under ideal circumstances, and average to about 30 or so extra damage total per cast, which isn't insignificant. Its most common application is for cheese strategies, which is outside the scope of this list, but in standard play it's still a B+. Our last page is Class and Respect. This is a 1 cost rolling 4 to 8 slash that inflicts 2 bleed next scene on hit, and on use it restores 2 light. The Thumb's light regen of choice isn't a very good one. Unfortunately, a 1 cost light regen is worse than 0 cost due to it being a bit more awkward to cast, and the die isn't good enough to consistently win clashes while also dealing less damage than frontal assault and not having a guaranteed emotion coin. This isn't premium light regen and is just a C-. In the next video, we'll be covering the Kane Office, Church of Gears, and Leo Section 1. I'll see you soon, and as always, thank you for watching. Hello and welcome back to Library of Ruina Ranked. In this video, we'll be going over the Kane Office, Church of Gears Worshippers, and the Leo Section 1. Our first page is Energy Beam. This is a 4 cost range page rolling 13 to 21 pierce, and on Clash Win, the user expends 2 charge to destroy the opponent's next offensive die, but only if there is an offensive die. This page is honestly not awful. While it only has a single die, it clashes like a 2 die page and is almost guaranteed to win. Of course, it is a 4 cost range page with a single offensive die, so it can't be amazing, but it's good enough to be a C. Absorb Impact is a 2 cost rolling 7 to 9 block, 5 to 8 slash, and giving the user 6 charge on use. Compared to Dimensional Rift, you get a 1.5 higher roll average, but one of the dice is block instead of slash. The main part of the page is the 6 charge utility, so lower damage isn't as big a deal as it normally would be. The clashing isn't quite where I'd want to be for a single offensive page, but it's still a solid enabler at a B-. A Golden Opportunity is another 2 cost. This one rolls 2 to 9 evade, 3 to 7 block, 4 to 7 blunt. The user gains 5 charge on use, and 2 additional charge when the evade wins a clash. I personally like this page more than Absorb Impact. You lose 1 power on the offensive die to split the solid block into a decent evade and block. You also have the potential to gain more charge, especially if you clash into a page with multiple offensive dice in a row. It's not an incredible page, but it's a solid enabler and is a B. Devastating Thrash is a 3 cost rolling 4 to 8 pierce, 4 to 8, 5 to 9 blunt, but on use, the user expends 4 charge to boost the power of the dice by 2. Rolling 6 to 10, 6 to 10, 7 to 11 without power boosts is really good, a decent bit higher than Wrath of Torment. Of course, you get this page 2 chapters later than Wrath, and the trigger condition is much steeper, but the damage output and clashing potential are great. Overall, that makes this page an A tier. Ready Up is next. This 2 cost rolls 4 to 8 block, 5 to 8 pierce, 3 to 8 evade, and on use, the user expends 2 charge to give 1 protection to all allies this scene and next scene. This is a decent payoff page, giving 10 protection for 2 charge, and the clashing is also solid. The evade on 3 is nice because it can sometimes act like a counter die when clashing to 2 die pages, and block on 1 is good to counter opposing evades on 1. This page doesn't see as much use as it could because the best charge payoffs are extremely good rather than just pretty good, but this is a B+ tier page. Energy Shield is a 1 cost rolling 3 to 4, 3 to 7 block, 3 to 5 pierce. The user gains 3 charge on use, and 1 additional charge if the first block loses a clash. This is a decent enabler, but worse than Rewind. The roll range is close, Rewind having a 0.18 higher roll average, but the evade on Rewind is actually quite strong. If you're doing harder receptions with these pages, then Energy Shield will become better because blocks are more versatile, but for now, I think Energy Shield is just a C. Energy Conversion is next. This is a 1 cost rolling 3 to 7 blunt, 2 to 5 slash. The blunt draws a page on hit, and on use, the user expends 4 charge to restore 3 light. This is an incredible payoff page, and is one of the only negative 2 cost pages in the game. The rolls are awful, so you can't really clash with this, but that's fine because the utility is incredible. Even without the page draw, it'd be insane, and I do think it's good enough to be an S+ tier page. Uncanny Strike is a 2 cost rolling 7 to 13 pierce, 4 to 7 block. Additionally, on hit, the pierce expends 2 charge to deal 6 stagger damage, triggering up to 3 times depending on how much charge the user has. 18 stagger damage is no joke, and being able to scale it depending on whether you need the charge for other purposes like drawing pages or restoring light is great as well. The rolls are decent, most of the power being stacked on the offensive die is nice because the block will always mitigate some damage, and the placement is good as well. Overall, that makes this page a B+. Vapor is a 3 cost rolling 9 to 19 slash that inflicts 3 smoke on hit, and on use, the user gains 4 smoke and draws a page. Compared to Deep Drag, you gain 1.5 power on the offensive die and move some of the smoke around, although still giving a net 7 smoke, but you lose the evade die. That's worse, because while the evade wasn't incredible, it was still strong enough to contend with value pages, and stacking more power into the die that's already very likely to win isn't great. You also get Vapor later, so it's just a B-. Defense Order is next. This is a 2 cost rolling 7 to 10 block, 4 to 8 slash, and it gives the user 4 smoke on use. Compared to Absorb Impact, you gain half a power on the defensive die, but lose half a power on the offensive die, and of course instead of 6 charge you get 4 smoke. The roll spread is ever so slightly worse, but 4 smoke is worth significantly less than 6 charge, which means this page gets a C-. Autonomous Rush is another 2 cost rolling 5 to 9 slash, 3 to 7 pierce. The slash inflicts 2 smoke on hit, and on use, the user gains 2 smoke. This page has middling damage and middling smoke infliction and generation. The clashing isn't great because 3 to 7 is likely to lose to a lot of things, so this page also gets a C-. Assault Order is yet another 2 cost, rolling 2 to 6 evade, 4 to 8 pierce, 3 to 8 slash, and on use, if the target has 2 or more smoke, the offensive dice gain 1 power. Having the same roll range and spread as Fleet Edge, this page ends up being slightly worse in my opinion because while the extra power is nice and easy to trigger, it lacks dice type consistency and the haste effect isn't nothing. It's still good enough to be a C+ though. Guidance of the Gears is a 1 cost, rolling 3 to 7 block, 4 to 6 pierce, and on use, the user gains 2 smoke and restores 2 light. This is extremely good light regen for smoke decks. Compared to the other light regens, you have the stronger roll average and additional utility on top of it. It's no energy conversion, but it's still good enough for an S. Flaming Dragon Fist is up next. This is a 4 cost, rolling 3 to 8 block, 13 to 28 blunt, with the blunt inflicting 6 burn on hit. This page is pretty bad as it has the same problems as 3 costs with 2 dice have, but more so since it's a 4 cost. Sure, you're almost guaranteed to win the 2, but that much power is usually overkill and it could have been spent elsewhere. It does counter Raging Storm Love decently well, but it's just a D. Fervid Emotions is another 4 cost. This one rolls 7 to 11 slash, 6 to 11 blunt, 3 to 8 slash counter, with the 1 and 2 inflicting 1 burn 2 times on hit, and on use, all the dice on the page gain 1 power for every 2 emotion levels. This page is a decent bit better than Flaming Dragon Fist. While the roll range is quite a bit lower, the power stacks more evenly, with double offensive dice, it has a counter die, and the power can get even higher, although it'll still have a lower roll average. It's not amazing by any means, but it'll beat most 3 costs with 3 dice and has good damage, so that makes this page a B. Fiery Waltz is a 3 cost, rolling 5 to 9 evade, 6 to 9 slash, 5 to 9 blunt, with both offensive dice inflicting 1 burn to all enemies if the target has 4 more burn on hit. This page has some decent rolls, being a bit better than an unenhanced Emotional Turbulence, but as you might have gathered from that, that's only unempowered, and at a single power, Emotional Turbulence will outroll this page. That's not great because not only do you get this page later, there's also less utility. In a burn focused deck that can reliably trigger the effect, the burn is pretty good and worth the use, but without that it's just slightly above average rolling 3 cost with no utility, and because the floor is so low, this page is just a C. Violent Flame is a 1 cost rolling 3 to 8 slash, 3 to 7 pierce, with the slash inflicting 1 burn on hit, and on combat start, when inflicting burn using combat pages, the user inflicts an additional stack. This is the burn equivalent of Dark Cloud, but is quite bad. Pages that can't clash and don't provide utility are becoming an increasing liability, especially with actually good light regen and page draw, unlike an Urban Plague, and burn is also a worse status defect than bleed. Both of these factors make this page an F. Single Point Stab is next. This is a 0 cost rolling 3 to 9 pierce, inflicting 1 burn on hit, and on use, at the start of the next scene, the user draws all copies of Single Point Stab from the deck. This is a rather interesting page, but unfortunately it's just not good. Sure, this page can technically draw up to 3 pages, or even up to 6 if you somehow manage to clone it 3 times and you discard your hand, but the fact of the matter is that the page is just not worth casting. Drawing pages is nice because it digs you towards your bomb pages and utility pages, but this just digs up more garbage for you to cast. Speed die slots are your most important resource, and you shouldn't waste your time with this F tier slot waste. Our last page today is Burning Flash. This is a 2 cost rolling 6 to 10 slash that inflicts 1 burn on hit, and on use, if there's another copy of Burning Flash in hand, the user discards it and draws a page, and then adds the Burning Flash die to the one that's currently being cast. This is a somewhat confusing page, but basically, if you have another Burning Flash in hand when you cast the page, you'll get 2 6 to 10 dice and go card neutral. Interestingly, this works favorably with Singular Strike, giving the bonus to the first die but not the second. The downside of the card is that it's fairly clunky to use, since you need to make sure you have a copy of Burning Flash in hand, which means you can only cast one at a time without clone, and sometimes you'll just get stranded with one in hand for a couple of scenes. Not a terrible downside, but you're jumping through hoops for a page that's pretty good at sealing and awful at the floor, so I can't give it higher than a C+. In the next video, we'll be covering the index proxies and RCore pages. I'll see you soon, and as always, thank you for watching. Hello and welcome back to Library of Ruina Ranked. In this video, we'll be covering the index proxies and RCore. Our first page is Eradication. This is a 5 cost mass summation rolling 12 to 23 blunt and inflicting 1 feeble this scene on hit, but it can only be used in the blade unlocked state. This is a pretty solid mass attack. The roll isn't incredibly high, so it'll lose to opposing bomb pages, but the status defect can really help your clashing and make it hurt less to target utility pages with it. This is a reusable mass attack and is an A. Castigation is a 4 cost rolling 1 to 5 pierce, 2 to 7 pierce counter. On hit, the pierce deals bonus damage and stair damage equal to 7 times the natural roll, and it reduces the power of all the opponent's dice clashing into it by 12, but it's only usable in the blade unlocked state. This page rolls like a 13 to 18 and deals between 8 and 40 damage. As a counter page, this can snuff strong ones quite easily, and while power doesn't work super well with it because the bonus damage only cares about the unempowered roll, things that boost the min and max roll work to give you extra damage. Of course, this is a 4 cost with a play restriction and with only 1 non-counter die, but it's still quite good at a B. Up next, we have Decapitation. This is a 4 cost range page rolling 13 to 25 slash and inflicts 1 feeble and 8 bleed next scene on hit, but it's only usable in the blade unlocked state. Unfortunately, Decapitation is the worst of the 3 unique pages, but it's still pretty decent. The roll is quite strong, and the status defects are powerful, but it's a 4 cost range page with 1 die, which means the damage is limited, and it's somewhat hard to clash with this page into 3 die pages because you'll be taking a bunch of damage in return. It's still solid, but only enough to get a B-. Somber Procuration is a 2 cost rolling 3 to 7 block, 3 to 5, 3 to 7 pierce, but if your deck is Singleton, the 2 gains 4 power. Compared to Creek, you need to build Singleton, but you get a 0.5 higher roll average and better dice placement. This is a solid value page and gets an S-. Eliminate is a 3 cost rolling 5 to 10, 5 to 10 slash. Both of the dice gain 1 power if the target is below half HP, and on kill, it gives all allies 1 strength next scene. This page is quite expensive and doesn't have much utility, which limits its usefulness, and its rolls aren't incredible, being slightly lower than low reroll when unempowered, but it does have the upside of dice type consistency and the on-kill effect. It's not amazing, but it's good enough to get a C+. Binding Chains isn't so lucky. This is a 2 cost rolling 4 to 8 blunt, 3 to 8 pierce. On the start of Clash, if the user's deck is Singleton, it reduces the power of all the target's dice by 1, and the blunt reduces the power of the opponent's next die by 2 on Clash win. This page kind of rolls like a 5 to 9, 6 to 11 if you win the 1, but that's not guaranteed, as well as the damage being lower than that. I think the juice isn't worth the squeeze, and this is just a C-. Multi-slash is a 1 cost rolling 3 to 7 slash, 1 to 4 blunt. On use, the user draws a page, and if their deck is singletoned, they also restore 2 light. This is an incredible card, and one of the main reasons to build singleton. Restoring light and drawing pages at the same time is great, as we saw in To Overcome Crisis, and this page isn't any different. Once again, very powerful utility is busted, and this is an easy S+ page. Unlock 1 is a single-use 0-cost rolling 2 to 6 slash and adding Unlock 2 to the user's hand on use. Unlock 2 is a single-use 0-cost page that rolls 2 to 6 slash 1 to 3 pierce and adds Unlock 3 to the user's hand on use. Unlock 3 is a 0-cost rolling 3 to 7 slash 2 to 4 pierce and it restores 1 light and draws 1 page on use. Compared to multi-slash, when you complete the minigame, you basically get the same page, but a slightly higher roll average and easier to cast without the singleton requirement. However, getting Unlock 3 requires you to cast Unlock 1 and 2, which aren't much better than just not casting anything in most cases. Because your speed dice are so limited early, it can be a struggle to find room to progress your unlocks, but the end result is so good that I think the first copy is an A. Mind Crush is a 6-cost mass individual rolling 4 to 8 pierce, 4 to 8, 5 to 10 blunt. All the dice deal 6 stagger damage on hit, but it's only usable at 20 or more charge. This is a pretty solid mass attack. The damage is good, and while the dice aren't unbeatable, with a couple power boosters it'll beat most things, and up to 90 bonus stagger damage is an insane amount. The downside, of course, is that you need to be at 20 charge, which is a real limitation, and even though the page is worth 6 light for sure, it still means that you'll need to spend quite a bit of time refueling 1 light afterwards. Even so, this is a great page and is an A. Ground Crash is a 6-cost mass summation rolling 13 to 22 blunt. It's only usable at 20 plus charge, and on use, the user expends 20 charge to boost the power of all the dice by 10. While lacking utility or the surgical precision of Mind Crush to stagger targets, Ground Crash instead just smacks them really hard with a hammer. 23 to 32 will beat most non-bomb pages, but compared to Mind Crush, I feel like you're not getting your money's worth, especially since this consumes the charge. It's probably due in part to Maxime's page having maximum crush, but since that's outside the scope of this review, this page is just a B+, which is still really good. Disposal is next. This is a single-use 5-cost page rolling 15 to 30, 10 to 20 slash. The 1 destroys the clash loser's dice, the 2 deals bonus damage and stagger damage equal to the natural roll if the target has mark. It's only usable at 20 plus charge. Upon killing an enemy with the page, you get another copy of Disposal in your hand with its cost reduced by 1. And, if the target is below half HP, it deals double damage. I'm not as big a fan of this card as the other ArcCorp exclusive pages. The rolls are quite good, but the 20 charge requirement is very steep for a non-mass attack. If you can get the 20 charge quickly, it can decimate the enemies, but it'll take multiple casts of the page, unlike the mass attacks which will often just win the reception for you. Against bosses it's better, but generally it's a B-. Mind Whip is a 3-cost ranged page rolling 9 to 23 blunt. On use, it deals 4 stagger damage to self, and on hit, the user expends 3 charge to deal 8 stagger damage. I don't like this page very much. It has a downside, is ranged, high light cost but only a single die, and the charge cost isn't worth as much as Leaper energy conversion, so it's hard to justify putting in. I think this page isn't worth running, and it's just a D. Rhino Ram is a 4-cost rolling 12 to 25 blunt, 4 to 8 block. On combat start, it gives the user 2 protection, and the blunt gives the user 8 charge on hit. This is a pretty decent charge enabler. The blunt is pretty much guaranteed to hit, and while the protection isn't very relevant, it's not nothing. Being a 4-cost with only 2 dice hurts a little bit, but it's still good enough to be a B. Concentrated Fire is a 2-cost single-use range page rolling 6 to 8, 5 to 7 pierce, 3 to 7 block, and on use, if the user's speed is 6 or higher, all the dice gain 1 power. This page has the same roll range as Somber Procuration when unempowered, and it doesn't require you to be singleton. Of course, it does have worse dice order and is ranged in single use, but the power boost and being able to run multiples of this page in your deck mean this page isn't too far behind and is an A+. Pinpoint Shot is a 3-cost single use range page rolling 8 to 21 blunt. On use, if the user's speed is 6 or higher, all the dice gain 2 power and it inflicts 2 bleed next scene on hit. Compared to going for Bullseye, you get a 1.5 higher roll average and the power boost effect, but the stats defect is worse in my opinion. Going for Bullseye wasn't that good in Urban Plague, and so being comparable to it in Star of the City means this page is an F. Battle Command is a 3-cost rolling 5 to 10 block, 5 to 9 slash, 5 to 8 blunt, and on combat start it gives 1 strength to 2 other allies. The rolls on this page are decent, and 2 strength is also quite good. I like this dice spread, and so while it's nothing fancy, this page is an A+. Energy Strike is next. This 2 cost rolls 4 to 7 block, 4 to 8 blunt, 4 to 8 slash. On use, the page deals 4 stagger damage itself, and the slash spends 3 charge to deal 8 stagger damage on hit. This page reads similarly to Mind Whip, having the same effect, but whereas Mind Whip wasn't worth running on its rolls alone, Energy Strike has a reasonable roll range, and while the downsides are still present and the charge expenditure isn't that great, it's a solid page at a B+. Bulky Impact is a 2 cost rolling 4 to 7 block, 6 to 12 blunt, and on use the user gains 5 charge. This page has the same roll average as Absorb Impact, but has 2.5 more power in the offensive die and loses 1 charge. Having more power on the offensive die is significantly better, but you do end up losing that 1 charge and you get this page slightly later. That still means it's a B though. Rapid Gashes is a 5 cost, rolling 4 to 10, 4 to 9 slash, 4 to 9 pierce, 6 to 10 block, and its cost is lowered by the number of other Rapid Gashes in the user's hand. This is a really interesting page. At 5 light it's bad, at 4 it's passable but nothing incredible. You really want to get it to 3 light for it to be good. Normally that'd mean you have to have all 3 in your hand, which is fairly uncommon without some setup cost. Both the magic of Clone, which we'll talk about later, this suddenly becomes a very potent deck, if not heavily lacking utility. Overall, that makes the ceiling of Rapid Gashes an A+, but without Clone it's just a C+. Next we have Quick Suppression. This is a 2 cost rolling 3 to 8 evade, 4 to 8 blunt, 3 to 8 slash. The blunt inflicts 2 bleed next scene on hit, the slash inflicts 1 bleed next scene on hit, and on use the user gains 5 charge. This is another solid charge enabler. While the clashing isn't as potent as Bulky Impact on a per die basis, the damage is significantly higher, and compared to other similar pages like Assault Order or Fleet Edge, this has stronger clashing as well as better utility. It falls short of the best enablers, but like Bulky Impact, this is a B. Graze the Grass is a 0 cost rolling 3 to 7 block, 3 to 4 pierce, and on use the user restores 1 light and gains 3 charge. This is, in my opinion, the best light regen page that doesn't also drop pages in the game. 3 to 7 block can mitigate damage quite well, 3 to 4 pierce guarantees an emotion coin, is a 0 cost so it's easy to use, and it gives you 3 charge if you care about that. This is my go-to 3rd light regen for singleton decks and is an S tier page. Concentration is up next. This is a 3 cost rolling 7 to 10 block, 4 to 8 pierce, 4 to 6 slash, and on use the user gains 8 charge. This is a great charge enabler for most decks. 8 charge on a single page is quite solid, and while the offensive dice aren't incredible, the block is very strong. There isn't much utility outside of the charge gain, which isn't great, but it's still good enough to be an A. Clone is a single use 1 cost rolling 2 to 7 block, 2 to 5 slash, but on use, it copies the most expensive page in hand and adds it to the user's hand. This is a really interesting page, but unfortunately it's not amazing. The going rate for the page is awful, and so you need to be getting some synergy out of copying pages rather than just copying one of your random bombs. As stated earlier, with Rapid Gashes, this page is great because there's a lot of synergy, but outside of that, this page is just a C-. Our last page today is Savage Mode. This is a single-use 2 cost page rolling 2 to 7 block, 3 to 7 slash. Additionally, on use, all ranged pages in the user's deck become melee, it adds a copy of Feral Knives to hand, and starting with the next scene, the user's dice gain 1 power. Feral Knives is a 6 cost mass individual rolling 4 to 9 pierce, 4 to 9 6 to 10 slash. It's only usable at 20 or more charge, the dice inflict 3 bleed next scene on hit, and the 3 deals 15 bonus damage to the manually selected target on hit. Even without Feral Knives, Savage Mode is a pretty great page. The initial page is quite bad, but after, you get a universal power boost and some potential incidental bonus of turning your range pages into melee. Feral Knives is also a pretty great mass attack and is in my opinion better than Mind Crush. Both of these factors combined make Savage Mode an S tier page. In the next video, we'll be covering Xiao, Yan, and the purple tier. I'll see you soon, and as always, thank you for watching. Hello and welcome back to the Library of Ruina Ranked. In this video, we'll be covering Xiao, Yan, and the purple tier. Our first page is Raging Storm Love. This is a single-use 5 cost mass attack rolling 3 to 7, 8 to 20 slash, both inflicting 2 burn on hit. Compared to Raging Storm Harm, you move the power onto 2 with the 3 to 7 die, and some of the burn gets shuffled around. Of course, the biggest difference is that you don't need to set up Raging Storm Love, which is significantly better. The power on 2 is also a lot better because there are way fewer pages with strong 2s than strong 1s. All these factors make Raging Storm Love an A+. Beyond is a 3 cost rolling 6 to 9, 5 to 8 block, 3 to 8 block counter, and it draws 2 pages on use. 2 pages is very good utility as we've seen before, and while the lack of damage isn't great, it's still good enough for an A+. Xiao 2 is next. This is a 2 cost rolling 6 to 9 block counter 3 to 8 slash counter with the slash inflicting 1 burn on hit. This page was really hard for me to evaluate. You can redirect pages towards you with this, but you're still at the whims of the enemy's speed die order. The power being on the first die is good, but it being an offensive die is a bit unfortunate. You can kind of think of this like a 2 cost with 2.5 6 to 9 block dice and a 3 to 8 slash counter, as that's often how it'll play out, especially if the enemy's pages are favorable for you. But the inconsistency is what makes it hard for me to give it higher than a C+, but please let me know what you think about this page, as well as parry when it comes up in the comments. BC is another 2 cost. This one rolls 7 to 10 slash 4 to 8 block, with the slash giving the user 2 strength next scene on hit. 2 strength is a pretty decent amount, but the rolls aren't quite where I want them to be. I do like how the slash die has most of the power since you really want that one to hit, and that makes this page a B-. Jin Ni is a 4 cost, rolling 15 to 28 pierce, and inflicts 2 burn to all enemies on hit. I'm not a fan of this page. Compared to Blazing Strike, you get a 1 higher roll average, which doesn't really matter with such a high average roll anyways, and the burn is spread out instead of concentrated, which is worse in my opinion, but you don't need to wait to emo through to use it. Of course, you get Blazing Strike at the end of Urban Nightmare, and our pages need to be doing a lot more at the end of Star of the City, so this page is just an F. Chi Wen is next. This 3 cost rolls 5 to 9 slash, 6 to 8 block, 5 to 9 blunt. Both offensive dice inflict 3 burn to target and self on hit. On combat start, the user takes 10 less damage from burn this scene, and on use, if the user has burn, they recover 4 HP and gain 2 protection next scene. 6 burn is a good starting point, and all of the pieces of this page work together quite synergistically. I think you need to be able to consistently trigger the on-use effect for this page to be good, and to that end, I don't think Chi Wen is enough as the only source of self-burn in most cases, especially since the burn it inflicts will quickly outdamage the combat start effect, heal, and protection. I think this page is just a C+ if you can't trigger the on-use consistently, but it jumps up to a B if you can. Fiery Dragon Slash is a 2 cost rolling 5 to 8 slash, 3 to 7 pierce, 4 to 7 block, 3 to 7 slash counter. The slash inflicts 2 burn on hit, and the counter inflicts 1 burn on hit. Compared to Greek, you lose the dice type consistency, but gain the burn, counter die, and half a power on the block. My typical evaluation is that a 3 to 7 counter die is worth about 1 light, and so Fiery Dragon Slash certainly delivers on the value. I think this page is actually slightly better than Greek relative to when you get it, and so this page gets an S. Coordinated Assault is a 3 cost rolling 5 to 8 blunt, 5 to 9 block, 4 to 7 pierce, and on combat start it gives 1 strength, 2 protection, and 2 stagger protection to a random other ally. This page is a bit weaker than I'd like, having a lower roll average than other utility 3 cost pages like Emotional Turbulence or Concentration, and the effect isn't stellar. The effect's targets being random hurts even more, so I think this page is just a C-. Distorted Blade is a 7 cost mass summation rolling 18 to 33 slash that inflicts 2 erosion on hit. This is a fantastic mass attack. 7 light is a huge price to pay, but the roll average is quite high, erosions will have the strongest status inflictions, especially when it gets applied very early into the scene, and it's also reusable. All these factors make this page an S-. Bilful Brands is next. This is a 3 cost rolling 4 to 8 slash, 6 to 10 pierce, 5 to 9 block, with the pierce inflicting 2 erosion on hit. This is another fantastic page. Again, 2 erosion is really good, and the rolls here are also quite strong. Having the strongest die be the one that inflicts the status defect is good, so this page gets an S. Lock isn't so lucky. This is a 4 cost rolling 7 to 9 block, 12 to 19 blunt, and the blunt destroys the opponent's next die on clash win. While this page clashes like a 3 die page with a really strong 2 and 3, the damage isn't there, which lowers the evaluation of the page quite a lot. It's similar to Energy Beam, and while Luck is definitely significantly stronger, you also get at the end of the chapter, so it's only a C+. Ominous Power is a 0 cost, and on play the user immediately restores up to 3 light, but loses the same amount of light they restored at the start of the next scene. This is a very unique page. It's a fantastic panic button, and it lets you restore light without needing to use your precious speed dice slots. Of course, you do need to pay back the loan, but since you determine when you use the page, the utility ends up being incredible and good enough for this page to be an S. Sword of Volition rolls 3 to 7 blunt, 3 to 7 slash, 2 to 5 pierce. The cost is equal to the user's max light, and on use, all dice on the page gain power equal to the user's emotion level, and they restore all light. Some people swear this page is the nuts. I don't really see it. At best, it rolls 8 to 12, 8 to 12, 7 to 10, which is quite good, but not for 8 or 9 light. I can't see any good use case for this page, so it's just an F. Our next page is Blind Faith. This is a 3-cost rolling 6 to 9 block, 6 to 10, 6 to 10 slash. On use, it restores 1 light, but all dice on the page lose 2 power. Basically, this is a slightly harder to cast 2-cost rolling 4 to 7, 4 to 8, 4 to 8, which is pretty good, but nothing incredible. The magic is in the little things that make this page better occasionally. If you have cost randomizers, this page becomes stronger because of the light restore, and in receptions with a power null, this can be a very powerful page. Even without those things, it's still a pretty good page at a B. The Will of the City is a 2-cost rolling 3 to 7 block, 3 to 7 slash, and on use, the user restores 3 light and draws a page. This is the best non-exclusive page in the game. As we've seen, pages that can both restore light and draw pages are generally extremely strong, and this is the most versatile of them all. It's the hardest to cast, but it has a block die, doesn't require charge, singleton, or any other hoops to cast. This is an easy S+. Serpent Sword Technique is a 1-cost rolling 3 to 6, 2 to 4 slash, and draws a page on use. Compared to Draw of the Sword, you're paying 1 more light for a 2 to 4 slash. That's pretty awful considering you get this page an entire chapter later and it's not even strictly better. This is just an F. Violet Blade is a 3-cost rolling 5 to 15 slash, 3 to 7 slash counter, and power affects the slash die twice. This page is just alright. Having power affect the die twice means that the damage is like a 2 offensive die page, but since it only has a single die, the clashing suffers quite a bit, especially since doubling the power often ends up being overkill since the base roll range is so high already. It can be used to achieve some extremely high damage numbers for achievements and stuff, but for general use it's just a C-. Snake Slit is next. This 2-cost rolls 2 to 4, 2 to 4 slash, 4 to 8 evade. The first slash inflicts 1 bleed next scene on hit, and on combat start, the user's slash dice power is boosted by 2 for the scene. Without any other assistance, this page rolls 4 to 6, 4 to 6, 4 to 8, which isn't amazing, but of course the slash dice power is given to all your other pages, which obviously makes it better. With just 2 Snake Slits, you're getting a pretty great deal, and that makes this page an A in my books. Snake's Prey is a 1-cost rolling 3 to 5, 3 to 7 pierce. The 2 inflict 1 bleed next scene on hit, and on combat start, when inflicting bleed with combat pages this scene, inflict an additional stack. This page is like a combination of Dark Cloud and Violent Flame, and like those pages, this one isn't great. The roll range is awful, and while you can probably inflict upwards of 8 to 10 bleed with this page, you need to have the perfect setup, and you'd rather just cast a page that can clash well or provide better utility. It's just an F. Laceration on the other hand is quite good. This 3-cost rolls 5 to 9, 5 to 8 pierce, 6 to 8 block, 3 to 6 pierce counter. The 1 inflicts 3 bleed next scene and the scene after on hit, the 2 inflicts 1 feeble next scene on hit, and the counter die inflicts 2 bleed next scene on hit. 6 bleed is a pretty crazy amount, and the roll range is quite good as well. The counter die's base is slightly below average, but it more than makes up for it by inflicting bleed. This is a fantastic bomb page, especially in pierce focused decks, and is an S. Venomous Fangs is a 2-cost rolling 4 to 8, 3 to 7 pierce, 3 to 8 block. The 1 inflicts 3 bleed next scene on hit, and the 2 inflicts 1 fragile next scene in the scene after on hit. Having equivalent rolls to Creek and very similar dice composition, this page brings up the power with 3 bleed and 2 fragile, both fairly potent status defects. It's not quite at the level of Broken Creek was in Urban Nightmare, but it's a solid role player and is an A. Strike Down is next. This 2-cost rolls 8 to 13 blunt, 5 to 6 block, with the blunt recovering 3 stagger resist on hit. I'm not too hot on this page, the rolls are just mediocre and there isn't much utility either. It's not awful, but it's just a C-. Great Serpent's Impact is pretty awful though. This is a 2-cost rolling 2 to 6 block, 5 to 7, 3 to 6 blunt. The 2 recovers 3 stagger on hit, and on combat start, the user deals 2 bonus stagger damage with blunt attacks this scene. While the extra stagger damage is quite good, the rolls are just not there. Having a 0.6 lower roll average than Creek is pretty bad at this point, and the combat start effect doesn't bring it up past anything more than a D+. Duel is a 3-cost rolling 8 to 17 blunt, 5 to 9, 4 to 8 block, 3 to 7 blunt counter. All of the non-counter dice reduce the power of the opponent's next die by 2. This is a pretty interesting page, but one that I quite like. The damage for a defensive focused page is quite high, and this can absorb a pretty crazy amount of damage since it can reduce up to 6 power. It's nothing fancy, just a solid A tier page. Serpentine Barrier is next. This is a 3-cost rolling 5 to 10, 4 to 10, 4 to 9 block counter. Of all the counter only pages, I think this one's the best by far. It's one of the best silver bullet pages in the game and provides an insane amount of defensive utility. The downside, of course, is that if at least 3 pages aren't targeting you, you end up wasting value, so sometimes your librarian will just not be targeted, but it's not a huge deal, but you can just use other pages in that case. Unfortunately, since this is a purely reactive page, it can't be amazing, but it's good enough to be a B. Parry is a 2-cost rolling 4 to 10 evade counter, 3 to 7 blunt counter. Basically everything I said about Xiao 2 applies here, except the dice and rolls are worse. Under ideal circumstances, this is a really efficient page, but the floor is low enough for it to only get a C-. Identify weak point is a 3-cost rolling 6 to 9 block, 5 to 9, 5 to 9 slash, but on use, the offensive dice switch to the most effective type. This is a very simple page. If an enemy is slash injured, it'll swap to a different damage type, so it'll always be doing max damage. The rolls are pretty solid, but the lack of utility means this is just a B. Our last page today is Mirage Storm. This is a 7-cost mass individual rolling 4 to 9 slash, 4 to 9 blunt, 4 to 8 pierce. The slash deals 5 bonus damage on hit, the blunt deals 5 stagger damage on hit, and the pierce inflicts 3 bleed and 1 fragile this scene and next scene on hit. The pierce's effect is obviously the strongest by a mile, but all the effects are welcome additions. The cost is really high and the dice don't roll amazingly, so this mass might need some help, but as I've said before, mass attacks are inherently powerful, and this is no exception at an A-. In the next video, we'll be covering all the pages from the general receptions and Star of the City. I'll see you soon, and as always, thank you for watching. Hello and welcome back to Library of Ruina Ranked. In this video, we'll be covering all the general reception pages from Star of the City. Our first page is Mangle. This is a 1-cost rolling 3 to 6, 3 to 5 slash, 3 to 7 block with both slashes inflicting 1 bleed next scene on hit. This page is actually pretty alright for a 1-cost clashing page. 2 slash dice with 2 bleed between them is a really nice start if you're bleed stacking, since most passives care about the number of slash dice used. The 3 to 7 block can act as a pretty decent hanging die if you plan on free hitting with this page, which you should probably be doing, as unfortunately the clashing leaves much to be desired. In the end, the page is decent, but only that, so it gets a C+. Shoving Stab is a 2-cost rolling 7 to 12 pierce that inflicts 3 bleed next scene on hit, and it draws a page on use. Compared to Gale Kick, you lose half a power in the counter die for 3 bleed and the page draw being guaranteed. That makes it quite a bit worse in my eyes, as the counter die was the main thing making Gale Kick a playable page. You do get this a bit earlier, but I think it's just a C. A Critical Moment is next. It's a 3-cost rolling 3 to 6 evade, 7 to 15 slash, inflicting 3 bleed next scene on hit, and it draws a page on use. This page is pretty awful. Compared to Deep Drag, you get a significantly lower roll average, worse status effect, and worse dice placement for no real upside. It's also markedly worse than Forceful Gesture. You also get this page later, so it's just a D. Disgorge Innards is a 4-cost rolling 5 to 8 pierce, 6 to 15 blunt, and the damage is increased by the amount of bleed on the target. This page is a decent build around. It excels at middling levels of bleed like low 10s to 20s, because at lower counts you're not really getting your lights worth, but at higher bleeds like 50 plus, then the enemy would have almost certainly died anyways, and you would have rather recovered HP, drawn pages, or restored light. It's not super easy to get to those levels of bleed without a dedicated bleed build, and so in a floor built around bleed, this is just alright at a C-, but is an F anywhere else. Gap Attack is a 0-cost rolling 4 to 6 block, 3 to 8 pierce, inflicting 1 bind next scene on clash win, and on use, it gives the user 1 haste next scene. This is a pretty awful page. The roll to light ratio is like fine, but it doesn't provide meaningful utility for it to deserve a slot in your decks. F tier. Dagger Press is a 1-cost rolling 2 to 7 pierce, 4 to 6 block, 3 to 7 pierce. The 3 inflicts 1 bind next scene on hit, and on use, it gives the user 2 haste next scene. This page also isn't that great. The rolls are fine for the light cost, but being a 1-cost they have to either be pretty incredible or the page has to have some good utility. This has neither, so while it's not unplayable, it's just a D. Feint is next. This is another 1-cost rolling 2 to 7 slash, 3 to 7 blunt, 3 to 7 pierce, with the pierce inflicting 1 binds next scene on hit. Compared to Dagger Press, you're trading dice type consistency and 2 haste for a 3rd offensive die instead of a block die. That's actually significantly better, although this page still isn't very good. In certain strategies where you stack insane amounts of strength, like with Weight of St. Olivia or similar, 3 offensive dice for 1 light is a pretty great deal, but that's a bit outside the scope, and so this page is just a C-. Seize Your Chance is a 2-cost rolling 3 to 7, 3 to 7 block, 3 to 8 pierce. The pierce inflicts 1 bind next scene on hit, and on use, it gives the user 2 endurance next scene. Compared to Iron Will, you always get the 2 endurance, and the offensive die is stronger with a bind, but the defensive dice are weaker by more than a power on average. In a defensive focused deck, I think I like Iron Will better because of that, but this page is still decent in those decks at a C+. Prod of the Weakness is a 3-cost rolling 4 to 8 block, 9 to 21 pierce, which inflicts 1 bind next scene on Clash Win. This is another entry into the 3-cost with a medium defensive and a strong offensive, and it's not amazing. No real utility really hurts at this point, because while in Urban Plague you can get away with pure bomb pages, in Star of the City you really need to have some utility or just knock your socks off good rolls, and this has neither. It's not unplayable, but it's just a D. Stiletto is a 4-cost rolling 4 to 10 evade, 11 to 25 pierce. The pierce inflicts 2 binds next scene on hit, and on use, the damage the page inflicts gets boosted by the sum of the target's binds and the user's haste. This is supposed to be the big payoff for all the haste and bind infliction the reception gives you, but again, it's just not that good. The damage boost is nice, but since there's only a single die, it's not a lot. 4 light needs to provide something pretty great, and while the evade die is strong and the pierce even stronger, I'm not really feeling this page's motivation, so it gets a D like Prod the Weakness. Our next page is Harp. This is a 0-cost rolling 1 to 2, 2 to 7 blunt, with the 2 giving 1 protection to the user next scene on hit. It kinda feels like they forgot to add a on use restore 1 light to this page, because what the hell am I looking at? Compared to Frontal Assault, you get worse dice placement and no light regen for 1 protection. This is unplayable at F tier. Sand Split is a 1-cost rolling 4 to 9 block, 3 to 9 slash, which gives 1 protection next scene on Clash Win. This page is similarly disappointing, sporting alright rolls but no utility to speak of. I like my utility to be cheap and my clashing pages to be expensive, so this fails on both metrics, F tier. Sandstrike is another 1-cost. This one rolls 4 to 8 blunt, 4 to 8 block, with the blunt giving the user 1 endurance next scene on Clash Win. Here, you trade half a power for a slightly stronger effect compared to Sand Split. Still bad though, F tier. Furicia is at least passable. This is a 2-cost rolling 5 to 8 block, 3 to 7 blunt, 3 to 7 block, with the blunt giving the user 2 endurance on Clash Win. The issue is that a 3 to 7 blunt doesn't win clashes very well, and you're not likely to be strength stacking on a deck that uses this page since it's very defensive slanted. That means this page is a D+, which is quite good compared to the other Ajat pages so far. Jemadar is a 2-cost rolling 4 to 8 pierce, 2 to 9 block, 3 to 8 pierce. Additionally, if the natural roll of the defensive die is max, you add a 4 to 5 pierce to the end. Or at least I think it does that. I've never actually gotten it to trigger. Even without the trigger though, the page isn't awful, which is good because you have a 1 in 8 or 12.5% chance of triggering it, so you should assume that it won't. I'd say if you were the luckiest person alive and always got the trigger, the page would be an A+, but the inconsistency makes it just a B-. The Ajat is next. This is a 3-cost rolling 5 to 6 block, 3 to 7, 8 to 14 blunt, with the 3 giving 2 protection to all allies next scene on hit. 10 protection is a pretty crazy amount, and the effect is stacked on the die that's most likely to hit. It's nothing overly fancy, and it's fairly focused on staying alive, but its raw power is good enough for an A-. Switcheroo is a 0-cost rolling 3 to 6 blunt, 3 to 5 slash. The blunt inflicts 1 paralysis next scene on hit, but it also draws the user a page when discarded. I'd argue that this page is better than Relay by a decent margin. The roll average is identical, but Switcheroo has double offensive and, more importantly, costs 0, so it's more likely to get pitched to cards that say discard a page with the lowest cost. Both of these make this page a C+ in non-margin discard decks. Insurance Covered is a 1-cost rolling 3 to 8 slash, 3 to 7 blunt, with the blunt inflicting 1 paralysis next scene on hit, but it restores 1 light upon being discarded. This page is a bit better than the page draw counterparts, due to light being more important, but not by much, being a B-. Equivalent Exchange is a 2-cost rolling 4 to 7 evade, 4 to 8, 3 to 8 blunt. The 2 inflicts 2 bleed next scene on Clash Win, the 3 inflicts 2 bleed next scene on hit, and on use, the user discards a random page to restore 1 light. This is a pretty mediocre discard outlet. At 1 light, it's quite strong, but only discarding 1 page and a random one at that means this is usually card disadvantage unless you can spike and hit a Switcheroo or similar. It's still pretty good since the rolls are so strong, but it's just a C+. Multi-Party Compensation is next. This 2-cost rolls 5 to 10 slash, 4 to 8 block, with the slash inflicting 1 disarm next scene on hit, but when discarded, all other allies restore 1 light. Restoring 4 light across your team is quite good, and the fail case of just hardcasting this page isn't awful either. This level support is rare to find, and so this page gets a B+. Final Stroke is a 3 cost rolling 6 to 7 blunt, 4 to 10 block, 8 to 21 blunt. The 3 inflicts 5 bleed next scene on Clash Win, and on use, it boosts the damage by 1 for each page in hand, then discards all pages. This is a much better discard outlet in my opinion. The 3 is pretty insane, and while the on-use effect's upside isn't incredible, it's not nothing. The 1 is deceptively strong because the roll range is so thin, and so this page gets an A-. Test Run isn't so lucky. This is a 0 cost rolling 2 to 6 blunt, 2 to 3 slash, and on use it gives the user 3 smoke. Again, it kinda feels like they forgot to add an on use restore 1 light to this because this page is unplayable. F tier. Smoke Blow is a 1 cost rolling 4 to 8 block, 5 to 8 blunt. The blunt restores 1 light and inflicts 3 smoke on hit, and on use, it gives the user 3 smoke. This page is just alright. Assuming you hit with the blunt, you spread a total of 6 smoke for 0 light. The rolls aren't great, but the smoke infliction is good enough for this page to get a D+. Smoke Smash is next. This is a 1 cost rolling 4 to 8 evade, 6 to 9 slash. The slash inflicts 2 smoke on hit, and on use, if the user has 9 or more smoke, all the dice on the page gain 2 power. This is a 1 cost clashing page I can get behind. In a dedicated smoke deck, reaching 9 smoke is trivial, and then we're talking one of the strongest evade dice in the game. The power level is too efficient to ignore, so this page gets a B+. It is still a 1 cost non-utility page after all. Smoke Prick is a 2 cost rolling 3 to 7 block, 3 to 8 blunt, 4 to 8 pierce. The 2 inflicts 3 smoke on hit, the 3 inflicts 2 smoke and gives the user 1 smoke on hit, and on use, the user gains 2 smoke. This page has the same roll range as Creek with better dice placement and 8 smoke spread, which is a pretty good upgrade. At this point the rolls are a little bit lacking without some extra juice, but it's still a B+. Field Mods is a single use 3 cost rolling 7 to 12 blunt, and on use it lowers the cost of all pages in hand by 1. Right away, this page's rolls are F tier, and so it's all on the on use effect. You'll probably want to use it alongside utility pages so your bombs get their cost reduced, which can be a bit unwieldy since utility pages are usually what draws you cards, which you want to have a lot of in hand to maximize the effect, but the effect is strong enough that this page's ceiling is probably a B. Exhale Smoke is a 4 cost rolling 7 to 12 blunt, 4 to 8 block, 7 to 11 slash. The blunt inflicts 3 smoke, and then if the target has 5 or more smoke, inflicts 3 paralysis next scene on hit, and on use it gives the user 8 smoke. The rolls are strong, and the blunt effect is very powerful and fairly easy to trigger. Solid A+ tier page. Wedging Thorn is next. The 0 cost rolls 3 to 6 1 to 3 pierce, the 2 inflicts 1 fragile next scene on hit, and it restores 1 light on use. Compared to Frontal Assault, you gain half a power on 2 and a fragile, but you get this page at the end of the chapter. Honestly, gaining half a power isn't entirely upside since Frontal Assault gave you a guaranteed emotion coin. I wasn't too high on Frontal Assault, and I'm even lower on Wedging Thorn. There are better light regens out there, and this page can only manage a C+. Cleave Across is a 1 cost rolling 4 to 8 block, 4 to 6 slash, inflicting 1 process next scene on hit. This page has a lower roll average than Sand Split and Sand Strike, and the effect is only marginally better. F tier. Faultless Strike is another 1 cost, this one rolling 4 to 8 block, 5 to 7 blunt, inflicting 2 fragile next scene on hit. Compared to Sand Strike, you trade the endurance for 2 fragile. That's slightly better, but doesn't save this page from its fate of F tier though. Knockback is a 2 cost rolling 4 to 7 blunt, 4 to 8 block, 4 to 8 pierce, with the pierce inflicting 2 fragile next scene on hit. This page hits slightly harder than Smoke Prick, but the effects are significantly worse and it doesn't have dice type consistency. It's not awful, but I'm not exactly excited to put this page in my deck at a C. Great Swing is another 2 cost. This one rolls 3 to 8 slash, 4 to 8 blunt, 4 to 8 evade, with the blunt inflicting 1 paralysis next scene on hit. This has the same roll range as Knockback, with slightly worse dice placement but a slightly better effect. They're close enough that this page is also a C. Our last page today is Ready Position. This is a 3 cost rolling 1 to 1 slash. On play, the user becomes immobilized this scene, gains 3 strength next scene, and adds a copy of Pinpoint Breakthrough to hand. Pinpoint Breakthrough is a single use 2 cost rolling 5 to 10 blunt, 15 to 24 pierce. The blunt inflicts 1 process next scene on hit, the pierce expends all stagger resist to deal bonus stagger damage equal to the amount expended, and only 1 copy can be in someone's hand at a time. What an awful page. First, you immobilize yourself, which already neuters your damage, and then you cast this page, and then you stagger yourself, which makes you even more vulnerable and again, neuters your damage. So you end up dealing less damage, being more vulnerable, and having fewer resources since you aren't using page draw and light regen. Awful. F tier. In the next video, we'll be covering all the pages for Imperitas Civitatis. I'll see you soon, and as always, thank you for watching. Hello, and welcome back to Library of Ruina Ranked. In this video, we'll be covering all the pages for Imperitas Civitatis. Our first page is Tree Trigram Formation. This is a 4-cost rolling 7 to 10 pierce, 8 to 11 slash, 6 to 9 block. The slash deals 5 bonus damage on hit, and on use, the user gets an effect based on which trigram they used. Tsun adds 1 power to all the dice, Kun gives the user 2 protection and stagger protection on combat start, Gam restores 1 light, and Ri draws 2 pages. This page is fairly hard to rate completely in a vacuum since a lot of its power is directly tied to a passive. Usually, you're going to want to cast with Ri or Chun, but the benefit is that this page can be whatever you want it to be. Its rolls are pretty incredible even without the power boost. It can give you more tank stats, cut its cost, or be 2/3 of a will of the prescript. The flexibility in raw power means that this page is an S+. Impugnatia Ultima is next. This is a 4-cost rolling 5 to 9 slash, 5 to 9 pierce, 5 to 8 blunt, 4 to 7 blunt counter. Additionally, on use, the user discards all pages from hand and gives all dice on the page 2 power. And this page is the ultimate discard enabler, with insane rolls, triple offensive dice, and a strong counter die. Of course, if you aren't in a discard deck, then you probably shouldn't be running this, but in a discard deck, it's an S-. Double-Edged Rencounter is a 3-cost rolling 7 to 10 block, 6 to 8 blunt, 5 to 8 slash, with the first 2 dice boosting the max value of the next die by 3. I'm not too huge on this page. There's no utility to speak of, and while if you win all the clashes, this page is pretty good, losing a clash means the page becomes quite bad. At this point of the game, bomb pages can't stand up on their rolls alone usually, so this page is just a C. Divinatory Impact is a 5-cost rolling 7 to 10 slash, 6 to 10 block, 6 to 10 blunt, 6 to 9 pierce, 5 to 9 evade. This page has 1 of each dice type, which is pretty cool. Unfortunately though, it's generally not worth using. The evade will act like a counter die most of the time, and it snuffs mass summations quite handily, but aside from that, it's just a mediocre page with okay rolls for the light. It's not unplayable, but the high light investment means it can't be anything higher than a C-. Up next is Augury Kick. This 3-cost rolls 7 to 12 blunt, 6 to 8 block. The blunt gives 2 strength to the user next seen on hit, and on use it gives 1 strength to the user. This is the generic equivalent of Kali's Focus Spirit. 3 strength is quite a lot, and the rolls aren't awful. I'm actually a pretty big fan of this page and put it in most of my decks, and the S- grade reflects that. Celestial Spear is a 3-cost rolling 9 to 20 pierce, 4 to 8 block counter. The pierce deals 5 bonus damage on hit, and on use it draws a page. I'm fairly medium on this page. As a general purpose page, it's lacking in dice count, so while the surrounding utility it has, being page draw on a counter die, is quite good, the core dice of the page make it harder to rate this higher than a C+. Godspeed is a 1-cost rolling 3 to 8 slash, 3 to 7 pierce, and on use, the user gains 1 haste next scene. Then, if their speed is 7 or higher, all dice gain 1 power. This is an interesting page as it's both the enabler and payoff for haste. Unfortunately though, it rolls way too low and has too little utility to be anything other than an F. Unyielding Strike is next. This is a 3-cost rolling 5 to 9 slash, 4 to 8 blunt, 4 to 8 block, and on use it restores 1 light. Compared to Blind Faith, you lose it on dice type consistency, the situational bonuses from having the power loss with a higher roll average, and a stronger dice placement in exchange for a slightly higher modified average roll. I think it's pretty much the same as Blind Faith, maybe slightly stronger, but since you get it later, it only gets a B-. After Image is a 2-cost, rolling 4 to 10 evade, 5 to 9 pierce, and on combat start, it halves all status ailments on the user rounded up. In receptions with heavy status infliction, this page is a very clean counter to it, and otherwise is just alright. I'd say a C+ normally, but up to a B+ if you're cleansing a good amount of debuffs. Confrontation is a 2-cost, rolling 3 to 6 block, 5 to 8 pierce, 3 to 7 slash. The pierce recovers 3 stagger resist on hit, and on use, it gives 1 protection to all allies next scene. The utility here is okay. 5 protection is a decent amount, but the rolls are just awful. I can't give this anything higher than a D+. Forward March is next. This is a 0-cost, rolling 3 to 6 blunt, 2 to 5 slash, and restoring 1 light on use. As always, I'm not a huge fan of light regen without a block die, and while this is probably the strongest double offensive standard light regen, it's just a C+. Brace Up is a 0 cost rolling 3 to 8 Pierce. On use, it discards a random page and then draws 2 pages at the start of the next scene. You can generally think of this as a 0 cost that draws a page, but the discard and draw 2 has some interesting effects. First, and most obviously, in a discard deck, this works as an enabler, and even doesn't mess with margin since it draws the pages at the start of the next scene. Additionally, if you have no pages in hand to discard, then it just acts like a clean draw 2, which is also helped with by again drawing the pages at the start of the next scene. The downside is that the rolls are terrible, but the utility is good enough for a B+. Mince is a 2 cost rolling 5 to 8 slash 4 to 8 blunt. The slash inflicts 3 bleed next scene on hit, and then blunt inflicts 2 bleed next scene on hit. This page's rolls are pretty bad, but 5 bleed is quite a lot. Without it, the page would be an F, but with it, it's a C-. Ever Spinning Gear Wheel is next. This is a 4 cost rolling 7 to 10, 7 to 10 slash 4 to 5 block. The 1 inflicts 4 smoke on hit, the 2 inflicts 3 smoke on hit, and on use, it gives the user 7 smoke. This is an incredible smoke generation tool. 14 smoke is the most generation in a single page, and the rolls are good as well. This page is, in my opinion, the best smoke enabler in the game, and is an S tier page. Suspicious Contract is a 1 cost rolling 3 to 5, 3 to 4, 2 to 4 block, but it restores 1 light upon being discarded. I actually like this page more than insurance coverage. The effect is the same, but I'd rather have the triple block dice than the double offensive in this case because you should only be paying this page in the fail case where you need to turn the turtle to draw into a discard all effect. You do get it a bit later though, so it's still just a B-. Let's Have Some Fun is a 2 cost rolling 4 to 7 block, 3 to 8 pierce, and on use it restores 4 light. This is a very simple negative 2 cost. The rolls are slightly better than the Will of the City, but restoring 2 light is worse than restoring 1 light and drawing 1 page. This is still an S tier page though. Our next page is Gugugu. This is a 2 cost rolling 4 to 5 block, 5 to 8, 5 to 6 blunt. This page is a Creek side grade, having the same dice spread and roll average. It's slightly better because the power is slightly stacked more into the offensive dice, it has a thinner roll range with 2 guaranteed emotion coins, and the dice placement is better. But Creek's really fallen off, so this page is just a C-. Blood Spreading is a single-use 6 cost mass summation rolling 17 to 25 slash, and the user recovers HP equal to the damage dealt on hit. This is a really strong mass attack. The roll range isn't incredible for 6 light, but being able to recover your entire health bar is rather strong, and this level of recovery makes this page an S. Rekindled Strike is a 3 cost rolling 11 to 22 pierce, 4 to 5 block. The Pierce inflicts 6 burn on hit, and on use it inflicts 2 burn to self, but lowers the cost of a random copy of Blazing Strike the user has by 1. On its own, this page is pretty decent. 6 burn is quite a lot, the block's a bit weak, but there's a lot of power in the offensive die. The cost reduction isn't much, but it's not nothing, and bumps this page up to a B+. Beatdown isn't so lucky. This is a 5 cost rolling 18 to 37 blunt, and on Clash Win, it reduces the power of all dice on the target's page by 5. 5 light for a single die is not exactly a deal I'm excited for. I do appreciate the power reduction reducing the damage you'll take, but I would have rathered it just give me more dice. I think this page is unfortunately an F tier. Chorus is next. This is a 3 cost rolling 5 to 9 slash, 5 to 9, 5 to 9 blunt, and on combat start it gives all allies 1 strength, but loses the effect afterwards. With the effect, this page is like an A+, but without it, it's only a C+ or thereabouts on the roll range alone. Triple offensive is nice, especially when you're strength stacking, but for general use, it's probably just a B+ overall. Crimson Claws is a 2 cost rolling 4 to 7 blunt, 3 to 8, 3 to 7 slash, all recovering 2 HP on hit. This is a fairly simple page. Triple offensive dice, a bit of healing to cover for no real utility or defense. It's great when free hitting, but isn't bad when clashing, just an overall solid value page at an A+. Next up is Overspeed. This is a 5 cost rolling 3 to 7 block, 3 to 6, 3 to 6 blunt, both giving 1 haste next scene on hit, and on use, if the speed is higher than the target's, all dice gain 6 power. With the boost, this page rolls 9 to 13, 9 to 12, 9 to 12, which is still below average for what I'd expect from a 5 cost, and this one is only conditionally that way, so it gets an F. Rooster's Crow is a 2 cost rolling 4 to 7 slash, 3 to 6 block, 3 to 7 blunt, and on combat start it gives 1 strength to 2 random allies. This is an okay page. The clashing is quite poor, and while the effect is nice, it doesn't really make it a page I want to play, so it's just a C. Unity Bolster is a 1 cost rolling 3 to 8 blunt, 3 to 7 slash, and on combat start, all other allies using a Unity page gain 1 power and all their dice. The Unity pages are pretty hard to rate on their own, because if it's the only Unity page getting used, all of them are Fs, but when you combine all the effects, you get some incredibly efficient pages. I'll be evaluating assuming that all of the effects will be triggered, which means this page would be an S+, but losing each extra die reduces the evaluation by about 2 grades, and losing the power lowers it by about 1 grade. Unity Coordination is next. This is a 2 cost rolling 5 to 8 pierce, 4 to 8 slash, and on combat start, all other allies using a Unity page get a 4 to 8 slash die added onto the page. Again, like Unity Bolster, this page will be evaluated assuming all the effects are triggered, which would make this page an S because it costs too light, but the base dice are slightly better. Unity Bulwark is another 2 cost. This one rolls 6 to 9 block, 5 to 8 pierce, and on combat start, all other allies using a Unity page get a 6 to 9 block die that comes first. This is the worst of the Unity pages individually because of the block die, but is nonetheless important to cast and still very strong at an S- when all the Unity effects are applied. Deluge of Braccio Quietasis is a 6 cost mass individual rolling 5 to 8 pierce, 5 to 8 slash, 4 to 7 pierce. It's usable after the second scene, and on use, is exhausted and added back to hand after 4 scenes. This is a fairly simple mass attack, decent dice, and it kind of draws a page every 4 scenes since it doesn't take up your page draw for the turn. Compared to Mirage Storm, this is undoubtedly worse, but it's still quite good at a B. Our next page is Unending Thirst. This is a 6 cost mass individual rolling 6 to 9, 8 to 19 slash. The 2 recovers 3 HP on hit, it's usable after the second scene. On use, it's exhausted and adds back to hand after 4 scenes, and if the user has recovered 20 or more HP in the act, its cost is reduced by 2. At 6 light, this is pretty good, probably like an A- or an A, but the cost reduction is so trivial to reach that this will almost always cost 4 after the first use, and will often cost 4 before the first use if you cast it on scene 4 or 5. At 4 light, it's obviously very bonkers, so this page gets an S. Straining Strings is a 6 cost mass individual rolling 6 to 10, 6 to 10 pierce, both inflicting 1 binds next scene on hit. Additionally, it's usable after the second scene. On use, it's exhausted and add back to hand after 4 scenes, and all allies with Puppeteer strings recover 20 HP and stagger on use. This page has pretty strong utility, inflicting up to 10 binds and recovering 20 HP and stagger. The rolls could be a little stronger for a 6 cost mass attack, but still good enough for an S-. Pitch Black Pulverizer is a 6 cost rolling 13 to 20, 13 to 20 blunt, 6 to 10 block. The 1 deals 5 bonus stagger damage on hit, and the 2 deals 5 bonus damage on hit. This page has some incredible clashing, and unlike Overspeed, it always has its clashing power. This page is well worth the light cost and is an A+. Climax is a 5 cost mass summation rolling 1 to 50 blunt, dealing 8 bonus stagger damage on hit. It's usable after the second scene. On use, it's exhausted and add back to hand after 4 scenes, and inflicts random status effects to targets randomly. Next scene from 2 Fragile, Disarm, Feeble, Protection, and Stagger Protection. This page's roll range is pretty insane, but the average isn't bad. It's not a top tier mass attack, especially since it could help the enemies, but that situation is less likely than you rolling super high and destroying them, so it's good enough for an A+. Tackle Mount is next. This is a 6 cost rolling 11 to 15 blunt, 35 slash, 35, 35 blunt. The 1 destroys all of the clashed loser's dice, the other dice deal bonus damage based on the amount of bleed the target has, and all the dice recover 3 HP on hit. I think this page isn't quite as good as Pitch Black Pulverizer. While the damage is higher, it doesn't enable itself, and the clashing ends up being worse since the 1 is quite a bit weaker. It's still quite strong at an A- though. Chorus at the Climax is a 6 cost mass individual rolling 6 to 11, 5 to 10 blunt, both inflicting 1 paralysis next scene on hit. It's usable after the second scene. On use, it's exhausted and add back to hand after 4 scenes, and it inflicts 2 fragiles to all enemies this scene on use. This page is quite similar to Straining Strings, having the same roll average, but I think both of its utility pieces are stronger. Paralysis is better than Bind, and 10 Fragile is better than 20 HP and Stagger. It's strong enough to get an S. Thought Gear Indoctrinate is a 5 cost mass individual rolling 5 to 9, 5 to 9 pierce. It's usable after the second scene. On use, it's exhausted and added back to hand after 4 scenes, and if one of the attacks hits at least once, all other allies restore 1 light at the end of the scene. I think this mass attack is a bit weaker than most of the other ones we've covered so far, but it's still strong. In a support-oriented build, this page can be very useful, restoring 4 light to the rest of your team, and while it's taxing on the user's light, it's still good enough to be an A. Flames of Despair is a 1 cost rolling 3 to 8 slash, 3 to 6 blunt. The slash inflicts 1 burn on hit, and on use, if the user is at emotion level 3 or higher, it adds a copy of Scorching Desperation to hand at the start of the next scene and inflicts 1 burn to all enemies. Scorching Desperation is a 5 cost mass individual rolling 14 to 20 pierce, inflicting 3 burn next scene on hit. This is a roundabout pseudo 6 cost mass attack, but it's pretty good. 14 to 20 is quite likely to just win everything, and the burn infliction is quite good. If your utility is good enough, then you can cast it every scene unlike other masses we've seen, but that's unlikely. I wish there was a bit more utility on it, but it's still very good at an S-. Taste Test is next. This is a 1 cost rolling 3 to 8 pierce that, on hit, gives the user 1 resilience if they have 2 or less resilience. Resilience prevents X instances of status elements from being applied, and the user loses a stack whenever it triggers. It also restores 2 light on use. This is an alright light regen if you're playing against status defect heavy opponents, but for general use, it's quite a bit worse than the other top options for pure light regen, so it's just a C+. Shaded Strike is a 7 cost rolling 4 to 8 slash, 3 to 8 pierce. While it's in hand, its cost is decreased for each clash lost against offensive dice. On combat start, it boosts offensive dice power by 1, and it draws a page on use. This page is really baffling to me. At anything other than 0 light, I'm not very happy to be using this page, and there isn't much synergy for high cost pages, and nothing that differentiates between 4 and greater than 4. I'm pretty sure this page is just completely awful and is an F. Our last page today is Opening Ceremony. This is a 4 cost rolling 6 to 10, 6 to 9, 5 to 9 block. On use, it draws a page, restores a light, and reduces the cost of all pages by 1 for the next scene. This can be a really roundabout light regen if you use 4 pages this scene after using this page, but that requires a lot of setup, especially since using 4 light will probably reduce your ability to clash. I think this page can be really strong, but the clunkiness makes it an A-. In the next video, we'll be covering all of Callie, Bina, Roland, and Argalia's pages. I'll see you soon, and as always, thank you for watching. Hello and welcome back to the Library of Ruina Ranked. In this video, we'll be covering all of Callie, Bina, Roland, Argalia, and Angela's pages. Our first page is Upstanding Slash. This is a 2 cost rolling 6 to 10, 6 to 9 blunt, and if the page deals 8 or more damage, the user draws a page and reduces the cost of all other Upstanding Slashes by 1. This page has strong clashing at 2 light, but can also reduce its cost to 0 and draws a page very often. Easy S+. Spear is a 2 cost rolling 3 to 8, 3 to 7, 3 to 7 pierce, and if the page deals 8 or more damage, the user draws a page and reduces the cost of all of the spears by 1. Similarly to Upstanding Slash, it has strong clashing at 2 light, although it's weaker in that regard in exchange for stronger damage, but it can also be a 0 cost and draws a page quite often. Another easy S+. Level Slash is another 2 cost, this one rolling 5 to 9, 5 to 8 slash, both inflicting 3 bleed next scene on hit, and if the page deals 8 or more damage, the user restores 2 light and reduces the cost of all other level slashes by 1. Instead of drawing a page, this one restores light. It's quite easy to make this a negative 2 cost with insane clashing, so you guessed it, another easy S+. Focus Spirit is next. This 2 cost rolls 8 to 12 block, 5 to 7 blunt, and the blunt gives the user 3 strength next scene on hit. While the blunt isn't insane, the block is quite powerful and 3 strength for 2 light is pretty incredible. This is another S+. Onrush is a 3 cost rolling 14 to 26 slash, and if the target gets staggered or killed by the page, it gets reused on a random enemy. While the roll isn't great, being a 3 cost with a single die, the damage is quite high, and if you can reuse it once or twice per cast, it'll feel like an S+, but the inconsistency of that means that this is just a B. Degraded Lock is a 3 cost ranged page rolling 9 to 20 blunt, 5 to 9 block. The blunt increases the cost of the target's pages that cost 4 or more by 2, and it restores 1 light on use. The on-hit effect doesn't really do much, but it'll occasionally put in good work. This is mostly a pseudo 2 cost rolling 9 to 20, 5 to 9, which is really strong. Its lack of good utility precludes it from S+, but it's still really strong at an S. Degraded Fairy is a 1-cost ranged page rolling 4 to 7 through to 7 slash, both inflicting 1 fairy on hit, and on use it restores 2 light. Fairy is probably the strongest status defect, so anything that inflicts it is very strong. The rolls aren't insane on their own, but being ranged works in this page's favor since you want to apply Fairy as soon as possible. This is incredible light regen, so this page gets an S+. Degraded Shockwave is a 5-cost mass individual rolling 3 to 8 through to 849 blunt. The 3 inflicts 1 feeble this scene on hit, and on use it gives 3 protection to all allies this scene. This mass attack is, like most masses, very strong. 3 dice means power stacking works well with it, as does dice type consistency. Giving 15 protection and 5 feeble is also quite strong. It's not the highest tier of masses, but it's pretty close at an S-. Next we have Degraded Pillar. This is a 3-cost rolling 7 to 11, 6 to 9 slash, 5 to 9 block. The one has an anti-recycling clause, and both slashes inflict 3 fairy on hit. 6 fairy is disgusting, and the rolls are also quite strong. The one also hoses pages that counter ranged pages since it'll always eat the first die. Nothing too complicated, just a very strong page at an S+. Degraded Chain is a 2-cost range page rolling 8 to 14 blunt, and on hit it seals a speed die of the target for the next scene. Sealing speed dice, even temporarily, is very strong, and so the somewhat lackluster clashing is made up for with that. The die it does have rolls quite well, but only 1 die means this page is an S instead of an S+. Alice Workshop is a 2-cost rolling 5 to 9, 5 to 8 pierce, and on the start of clash it reduces the power of all the target's dice by 2. This is a fairly simple page. The rolls are pretty good, and the clash effect makes it even stronger. The lack of meaningful utility holds this page back though, and it's just an A+. Wheels Industry is a 4-cost rolling 14 to 24 blunt, 5 to 8 block, and the blunt destroys the opponent's next die on clash win. Compared to Lock, you lose 1.5 power on the block, but gain better dice placement and 3.5 power on the blunt. It's not incredible, it is probably Rollet's weakest page at a B. Zelkova Workshop is a 0-cost rolling 4 to 8 slash, 3 to 8 blunt. Its cost can't be changed and it draws a page on use. This is a decent page draw, but nothing incredible. Compared to Brace Up, you get a free 4 to 8 die, but lose it on the bonuses that Discard 1 Draw 2 gives. I think that's reasonably better, but not incredibly so this page gets an A. Old Boys Workshop is a 1-cost rolling 5 to 9 block, 4 to 8 blunt. The blunt recovers 5 stagger resist on hit, and on use, the user restores 3 light and draws a page. Compared to Will of the City, this page costs less, has stronger rolls, and additional utility. S+. Mook Workshop is next. This is a 2-cost rolling 8 to 15 slash, dealing 3 bonus damage to the target on hit, and on use it restores 3 light and draws a page. This is also stronger than the Will of the City due to being able to clash effectively with it. S+. Rongo Workshop is a 0-cost rolling 3 to 7 pierce, 3 to 7 slash. The slash inflicts 2 bleed next scene on hit, and the cost of the page can't be changed. This page is just alright. Compared to Feint, you save 1 light, have partial dice type consistency, half a power on 1 and 2 bleed, but lose it on the bind. Of course that means this is significantly better, but it's only a B+ due to the lack of utility. Crystal Atelier is a 3-cost rolling 8 to 11 evade, 7 to 11, 7 to 11 slash, 4 to 8 slash counter. This page has no utility, but the rolls are just really disgustingly high. 8 to 11 evade will blank pretty much any 3-die page that doesn't have a defensible die on 1 or 2, and the counter die is also above average. This is an S+ tier page. Atelier Logic is our next page. This is a 2-cost ranged page rolling 4 to 8, 5 to 8 pierce, 7 to 12 blunt. Again, this page has no utility, but the rolls are really strong. It's not quite to the level of Crystal Atelier because there's no counter die, but it's strong enough for an S-. Durandal is a 2-cost rolling 5 to 9 slash, both giving the user 1 strength next scene on hit. The rolls here are pretty strong, and the strength is also great. It's not quite as good as Focus Spirit because it only gives 2 strength, but it's still very good at an S. Trails of Blue is next. This 3-cost rolls 8 to 17 slash, 5 to 9 block, and it power nulls itself on the target's page. Power null is usually a downside, and this page's rolls aren't incredible for its lack of other utility. It's good as a silver bullet, but for standard play, it's just a D+. Allegro is a 2-cost rolling 5 to 9 slash, 5 to 9 blunt, 4 to 7 block. The offensive dice inflict 2 vibration to the target on hit, and if the page triggers resonance, the user draws 2 pages. Drawing 2 pages is really strong on almost any page, and this page's rules are passable without the utility, so this is an S+. Largo is a 0 cost rolling 4 to 8 block 5 to 9 slash. The slash reduces the target's vibration by 1 if it's at 6 or higher, it restores 1 light on use, and if it triggers resonance, the user draws a page. Without the page draw, this is already probably at S tier, maybe borderline S+, because of its raw power, but when you add that page draw, the page becomes absolutely nuts. And although it's not quite to the level of Old Boys Workshop, it's still an easy S+. Our next page is Resonant Scythe. This is a 2 cost rolling 5 to 8 block, 5 to 8 slash, 5 to 7 blunt. The slash deals 3 damage to the target on hit, and on use, if the user triggers perfect resonance, all the dice gain 4 power. When you trigger this page, the rolls are at a level of a 4 cost page. The lack of utility is unfortunate, but not enough for this page to not be an S+. Tempestuous Danza is a 3 cost mass individual rolling 5 to 9 slash, and on hit, the target's vibration is set to 4. This is a very cheap mass attack with some relevant utility for vibration, since 4 vibration is good enough to trigger resonance 2/3 of the time, with 5 being the best. Beyond that, it's still a 3 cost mass attack, so it has to be pretty good, and this page has additional upside that brings it to an A. Controlled Resonance is a 1 cost rolling 3 to 8 slash, 3 to 8 blunt, and it makes resonance trigger if the target has 4 more vibration. This page is usually a crutch, since a skilled player can consistently trigger resonance pretty much every single time on targets at or above 4 vibration, but for players new to the playstyle, it can help with your triggers, especially since vibration gain is a lot quicker than reduction. For those players, this page will feel like a B, but for skilled pilots, it's probably just an F. Next, we have Crescenda. This is a single-use 6 cost mass individual rolling 6 to 10 pierce, 9 to 22 slash. It's usable after the first scene, the slash deals 50% more damage if the pierce hits, and on use, it adds a copy of Grand Finale to hand. Grand Finale is a 6 cost mass summation rolling 30 to 40 pierce. The first mass attack is pretty good, both dice rolling reasonably higher than Raging Storm Love, and the burn being replaced with the potential to deal 150% damage with the slash. The second mass attack is just Great Split Horizontal without the bleed, which is still really strong and is another S+. Shyness is a 2 cost rolling 5 to 8 block, 4 to 8 block counter. Both the blocks deal 3 bonus stagger damage on clashed when, the cost can't be changed, and on use the user restores 3 light and draws a page. This is an insane page, being a negative 3 cost that also draws a page and has a strong counter die. At 2 light, this would be an S+ still, and of course it gets an S+ at 0 light as well. Token of Friendship is a 1 cost rolling 5 to 10 evade, 4 to 9 blunt. The blunt inflicts 2 fragile next scene on hit, and on use it recovers 6 HP and stagger resist for the ally with the lowest current HP. The rolls here are quite strong, although not on the same level as Smoke Smash. I do think this page is better because 2 fragile is stronger than 2 smoke, and 6 HP and stagger is actually somewhat relevant. It's nothing incredible, but it's good enough for an A. Lean Bloody Wings is next. This is a 2 cost rolling 5 to 8, 4 to 7, 3 to 7 pierce, with the 1 and 2 inflicting 1 bleed on hit. The cost of the page can't be changed, and on use it restores light and draws a page. Compared to Spear, you gain half a power on average, a guaranteed page draw, 2 bleed, and always being a pseudo 1 cost rather than needing to reduce the cost. Of course, that means that it'll never become a 0 cost, but I'd say on average it's a decent bit better, and of course is an S+. Display of Affection is a 3 cost rolling 8 to 10, 4 to 9 slash, 3 to 8 slash counter. The 1 destroys the opponent's next die on clash win, and on the start of the clash, the dice on the page gain 2 power. Rolling 10 to 12, 6 to 11 is quite strong. The damage is high even though it's a 2 die page because of double offensive, and it clashes like a 3 die page because of the effect on 1. Of course, the only utility is the counter die, so while it's a really good clasher, I already expect my 3 cost to be that and more, but this page is strong enough for an A+. Our last page today is Coffin. This is a 4 cost range page rolling 10 to 15 pierce, 4 to 8, 4 to 8 evade, and the pierce seals the speed dive of the target next scene. Compared to Degraded Chain, you pay 2 more light for 1.5 power on your offensive die and 2 4 to 8 evades. I do think that this page is stronger, and gets an S+ because the main complaint I had about Degraded Chain was its single die, which this page addresses. And that should just about wrap up Ruina Ranked. Thank you everyone for joining me on this journey. I'm not sure what I'll be doing next, or even if it'll be Library of Ruina related, but whatever it is, I hope you'll join me. I'll see you soon, and as always, thank you for watching.